Chapter 103. The exterior of the Golden Lion Den was majestic and resplendent, but the interior was filled with a foul atmosphere. There were those who smoked tobacco pipes, those who drank alcohol, and those who spoke gibberish in drunkenness. Those who lost all of their fortune were bawling their eyes out. Every day, there would be quite a number of people who fainted after losing all of their fortune and had to be carried out of the den. However, there was still an endless stream of people entering from the outside. At the entrance of the Golden Lion Den, a middle-aged man who looked like a hoodlum was lying naked on the ground. He had already lost all of his clothes, leaving only a pair of underwear on his body to conceal his embarrassment. Upon seeing him, the passers-by would either have a look of ridicule on their faces or curse, "Look! This is the imperial brother-in-law." Or rather, he spat on the ground. However, the hoodlum lying on the ground was completely oblivious to it. Even though he was in deep sleep, a conceited smile hung on his lips, as though mocking those who mocked him. If one were to approach, one could even hear him muttering, "I am the imperial uncle, I am the imperial uncle, when the time comes, I'll teach you a lesson." Hoodlums, gamblers, prostitutes, drinkers. To the people of the Golden Lion Den, this day seemed to be no different. Until a deafening sound came from outside. Hom long long. No one could withstand the sudden tremor. It was as though the entire Golden Lion Den was being held up by a pair of gigantic palms. This abrupt change caused many of the prostitutes and singers in the Golden Lion Den to shriek in shock. Many gamblers who were in the midst of gambling also turned their heads around in panic. Their faces were pale. Unknowingly, two towering figures had appeared at the entrance of the Golden Lion Den. The two of them stood side by side, blocking the sunlight that shone in from the outside. In an instant, the entire Golden Lion Den turned dark, as though day had turned into night. In that instant, everyone was dumbfounded by this sudden change. Turning around, as though a rabbit being stared at by a lion, their bodies trembled in fear. Imperial Army. It's the Imperial Army. No. It's the Chamberlain of Insignia. It's the Chamberlain of Insignia. Many people suddenly recognized the two towering figures at the entrance. Dressed in armor, they resembled golden-armored deities who had descended from the heavens. These were not ordinary imperial guards but the imperial guards of the imperial palace. They were responsible for the safety of the emperor's chambers and were the closest guards to the Son of Heaven. Although they knew that the two of them weren't demons or ghosts, they still couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts after being stared at by those two pairs of bell-like eyes. Yang Zhao. Who is Yang Zhao? One of the two suddenly opened his mouth. The deafening roar sounded like the roar of a lion, shaking the entire Golden Lion Den. Some of the more cowardly ones trembled in fear, and they even wet their pants. The women screamed in fright. Who is Yang Zhao? The mountain-like figure spoke again. This time, its bell-like eyes carried a trace of anger. He is. A gambler suddenly pointed at a middle-aged man who was sleeping soundly on the ground next to the two imperial insignia. His fingers were trembling violently. In an instant, everyone's eyes were focused on the middle-aged hoodlum who was sleeping soundly on the ground at the entrance. Even the two imperial insignia, who were as burly as mountains, were the same. Being stared at by so many people, the snoring Yang Zhao finally sensed that something was amiss. He slowly opened his bleary eyes. Who is it? Seeing the massive face that suddenly appeared before him, Yang Zhao subconsciously asked. You are Yang Zhao. The towering imperial insignia bent down, and his face was almost touching Yang Zhao's. However, this time, his voice was much gentler. Lying on the ground, Yang Zhao was taken aback. A hint of doubt flashed across his eyes, but soon, he focused his gaze on the indestructible armor on his body. Imperial insignia. You are the imperial insignia. Yang Zhao was stunned for a moment. In an instant, he seemed to have understood something and exclaimed. Pang! Yang Zhao abruptly stood up from the ground. A surge of ecstasy surged through Yang Zhao's heart, making him extremely excited. He knew that the moment he had been waiting for had finally arrived. Ha ha ha, Imperial insignia. Imperial insignia. You bunch of snobbish bastards, do you see that? I am the Imperial uncle, I am the Imperial uncle. I, Yang Zhao, have struck it rich. Yang Zhao abruptly leaped up from the ground and danced excitedly. Everyone in the Golden Lion Den was stunned by his actions. But Yang Zhao paid them no heed. He was frenziedly venting the ecstasy in his heart. You bunch of blind fools, how dare you say that I am lying? Do you see that? Imperial insignia. Imperial insignia. My younger sister has sent someone to fetch me. I am the Imperial uncle, I am the Imperial uncle. Looking at the shocked and fearful gazes, Yang Zhao felt incomparably exhilarated. The displeasure of the past few days, being mocked, belittled, and mocked, all of it was swept away. Before Yang Zhao could fully enjoy this moment, a massive palm suddenly reached out from behind and grabbed Yang Zhao. As though carrying a little chick, it carried him out. All of Yang Zhao's words came to an abrupt halt. He was carried onto the carriage by 2 imperial insignia, and the carriage rumbled away. In the Golden Lion Den, everyone was dumbstruck. For a very long time, no one spoke. Someone dropped a piece of tobacco and burned his feet. His mouth was agape, but he didn't feel anything at all. Pooh! Water splashed everywhere, and a huge bucket of cold water splashed onto Yang Zhao's body. The glory and adoration he had expected didn't appear. Yang Zhao appeared here the moment he entered the palace. Even though the water was poured onto him in a bucket, when the cold water splashed onto his body, Yang Zhao felt as though he was being stabbed by a saber. His entire body was aching and cold, as though a layer of his skin had been peeled off. Don't move. Just as Yang Zhao was about to speak, another bucket of cold water splashed onto his body and mouth. On the other side, 2 expressionless old nannies held 2 buckets of water in their hands. Their gazes were so sharp that it seemed as though they could slice off a layer of his skin. Her Highness is a precious treasure. You are dirty and smelly, how can you meet her in such a state? Stand here obediently and don't seek trouble for yourself. Even though the 2 old nannies looked much younger than before, they seemed to possess boundless strength. Yang Zhao felt that even if 17 or 18 people of his caliber were to come, the 2 old nannies would be able to subdue them easily. Facing the threatening gazes of the 2 old nannies, Yang Zhao finally obediently lowered his hands and stopped moving. Hua hua hua. Bucket after bucket of cold well water splashed onto Yang Zhao's body. His skin was flushed red, as though it had been scorched by fire. Only then did the 2 old nannies stop. Following which, a few palace maids came in with razors to shave Yang Zhao's stubble, comb his hair, place a golden crown on his head, and dress him in a white robe. All of this took nearly 4 hours before it finally came to a stop. Lords, it's done. You can bring him to meet Her Highness now. The 2 old nannies looked at Yang Zhao, who was dressed appropriately, before turning around and expressionlessly speaking to the 2 chamberlains of imperial insignia who had been watching from the beginning. The 2 tall and muscular chamberlains of imperial insignia assessed Yang Zhao from head to toe. Even though they had no concept of beauty or ugliness, they couldn't help but nod their heads in approval. The current Yang Zhao was completely different from the Yang Zhao they saw at the entrance of the Golden Lion Denver. When they first saw him, Yang Zhao's stubble and hair were unkempt, reminiscent of a lowly thug. However, the current Yang Zhao was completely different. A silver crown, a plain white robe, a smooth chin, a clean face, a pair of sword-like eyebrows, and a clear gaze. Even if he were to say that he was an important minister who had just left the court, no one would doubt him. As expected of Her Highness's elder brother, they share the same bloodline. The 2 chamberlains of imperial insignia nodded their heads in approval. That person was able to obtain the favor of the sage emperor, so how could his elder brother be any worse than him? Follow me. The two chamberlains of imperial insignia turned around and led Yang Zhao away. In the depths of the royal palace, a distance away from the residences of the other concubines, stood the Yuzhen Palace. This was a newly constructed palace. In this palace, Yang Zhao finally met his younger sister. A red tent spanning more than a dozen zhang was erected in the depths of the Yuzhen Palace. At the four corners of the tent stood four muscular chamberlains of imperial insignia, each wielding a halberd in their hands. Their entire body was covered in armor, and even their faces were concealed. They stood there motionlessly, as though a guardian deity. Within the tent, a slender and hazy figure could be vaguely seen. Even though she was just sitting there, she exuded a beautiful and elegant aura. With a single glance, Yang Zhao recognized that it was his cousin. "Hold it right there." Barely after Yang Zhao took a few steps forward, the clanging of metal resounded in the surroundings of the tent, and an intense chill permeated the air. A few chamberlains of imperial insignia stepped forward, and killing intent seeped out from the gaps in their armor. "His Majesty has decreed that no one is to approach Consort Tai Zhen. Those who disobey shall be executed." Their voices were resolute, and every single word they uttered sounded as though it was as heavy as lead. "Cousin, don't come over." An anxious voice came from within the red tent. That voice was crisp and melodious, yet soft and gentle, causing ripples in one's heart, as well as a trace of tenderness. Yang Zhao hurriedly lowered his head, not daring to have any ripples in his heart. His cousin had always been a natural beauty. When she was only 7 years old, a magician had already come knocking on her door, saying that she had the fate of a phoenix and the disposition of a palace. Yang Zhao was by no means a gentleman, but towards this cousin of his, Yang Zhao had never had any improper thoughts. Furthermore, she was someone that the Holy Emperor had taken a liking to. In the future, if he wanted to achieve meteoric success, he would have to rely on this cousin of his. Right now, if anyone had the slightest bit of evil thoughts, the first person to object would probably be him, Yang Zhao. "Younger sister, why is this so?" Yang Zhao calmed his heart, but his heart was filled with doubts. He was the cousin of Consort Tai Zhen. Logically speaking, the emperor should not have forbidden him. This is His Majesty's order. Last month, a master of divination checked on me, and said that I have the misfortune of a red demon rushing into the palace. If I want to be with His Majesty, I must meditate in the palace for 49 days. During this period of time, no one is allowed to go near me. Because of this, more than 10 palace maids have died in the palace. In the red tent, Consort Tai Zhen's voice said. Yang Zhao sniffed, and only then did he smell a faint scent of blood in the air. He couldn't help but be shocked, and hurriedly retreated a few steps, not daring to go any closer. "Younger sister, what did you summon me for this time? I've waited for a long time this time." After retreating, Yang Zhao calmed himself down and grumbled with a hint of resentment. "Older brother, I do have something to ask of you." "Younger sister, I am in a precarious situation, and have reached the critical moment of life and death. Only older brother can help me now." Consort Tai Zhen's voice came from the tent, with a hint of anxiety. Chapter 104. Little sister, what's wrong? Yang Zhao asked anxiously. His voice was even more anxious than Consort Tai Zhen's. The reason why he had come all the way here from Jiannan was because of his cousin, Consort Tai Zhen, who was in the royal palace. If something were to happen here, all of his glory and wealth would be for naught. His Majesty intends to confer me as his consort, but the officials are reacting strongly against this matter. Due to His Majesty, at least half of the officials are attacking me. I'm currently in a dire situation, and my life could be at stake. If this matter succeeds, I'll be able to live with His Majesty day and night, and I'll be able to fulfill my wish. Or perhaps, I might fail. Since ancient times, people like me have never had a good ending. Even though Consort Tai Zhen was trying her best to maintain her composure, her voice still carried a hint of fear and unease. Since ancient times, there had never been a lady who was being attacked by half of the officials. This wasn't a pressure that she could bear alone. Just the thought of the memorials flying into the palace was enough to wake her up from her nightmares time and time again. What? Yang Zhao's face immediately warped in shock. He knew that it wasn't easy for his younger sister, and he had heard a little about the matters in the royal court. However, he didn't think that it would be so dangerous. What should we do then? Of all the officials in the royal court, the ones who oppose me the most are the King of Song and an official named Wang. General, putting aside the other officials, the King of Song is a member of the royal family, a king of the Tang dynasty. On top of that, he wields great influence in the royal court. As for Wang Zhen, he's from the Wang clan. Even though he can't compare to the King of Song, his father is the famous Duke Jiao of the Tang dynasty. Consort Taizhen said. Wang Zhen. Yang Zhao frowned. He wasn't familiar with the people in the royal court yet. However, he vaguely felt that Wang Zhen was somewhat familiar. It didn't seem to be just because his father was Duke Jiao of the Tang dynasty. Currently, only Duke Jiao hasn't expressed his opinion. His opinion had a great influence on the court officials and the emperor. The King of Song and the Wang family had been friends for 3 generations. Today was Duke Jiao's 70th birthday. The King of Song would definitely go and offer his blessings. If Duke Jiao publicly expresses his support for him, that would be terrible. Consort Taizhen's voice came from the red tent, filled with worry and resentment. She had never expected things to turn out this way. She hadn't done anything evil, nor had she interfered with the court's politics. All she wanted was to be with the person she loved. Why were there so many people against it? Sister, what do you want me to do? Yang Zhao said without hesitation. He didn't know much, but his only advantage was that no matter what, as long as it was his sister's word, he would never hesitate. Even if he had to kill someone, he would do it without hesitation. His Majesty told me that no matter what, he would bring me into the palace and keep me by his side. There are also many officials in the court who have expressed their support for His Majesty and me, including the Prince of Qi and the Yao clan. But this is far from enough. Duke Jiao's status is unique, and His Majesty has always treated him with respect. I can only think of a way to rope in the other officials. Consort Taizhen clapped her hands in the tent, and several old nannies in the Yuzhen palace immediately carried several boxes filled with gold leaves, gold biscuits, and gold bars, and pushed them to Yang Zhao. The sight of so much gold left Yang Zhao's eyes dazzled. I don't know many people in the capital, and given His Majesty's and my status, it isn't suitable for me to make an appearance. I can only think of you for this matter. These are some of the rewards that His Majesty has bestowed upon me. Take them. You have to find a way to rope in the other officials in the shortest time possible. Consort Taizhen said with a tinge of sadness in her voice. Little sister, don't worry. Leave this matter to me. Yang Zhao patted his chest. He paused for a moment and said hesitantly, however, I'm afraid it's not enough to just give them some gold. I'm afraid it's not enough to bribe those courtiers. Humph, don't worry. Go and tell them that as long as I can safely get through this, I'll be able to help you. I will definitely think of a way to guide them and ensure their prosperity and wealth. As for the King of Song, I have no enmity with him, yet he has repeatedly summoned his ministers and jointly remonstrated me, wanting to put me to death. If I can survive this, I will definitely make him and that Wang clan die without a burial ground. Consort Taizhen said coldly. At the end of her words, her voice was filled with intense hatred. For the King of Song, this matter might concern the reputation of the royal family, but for her, it concerned her life and death. When a person was forced into a desperate situation, even the weakest person would slowly become tough. Hee, don't worry, little sister. With your words, I'm confident. Yang Zhao agreed and didn't say anything else. Although he had lost all his money in the gambling den, Yang Zhao had gotten used to seeing people from all walks of life and had learned many things from them. The world is bustling, and everyone comes for profit. The world is bustling, and everyone goes for profit. As long as there was enough profit, he was confident that he could move anyone. After summoning 2 nannies, Yang Zhao brought a chest full of treasures and left Yuzhen Palace. While Yang Zhao was leaving Yuzhen Palace, somewhere else, Your Highness, the King of Song has already left the King of Song residence. A well-built figure entered the King Qi manor and respectfully knelt on the ground as he made his report. Ha ha ha, good. Behind a red sandalwood table sat a figure with a majestic aura, as vast as the mountains and seas. He exuded a fearsome aura, and anyone who saw him would think that he was a coiled-up flood dragon. Old Master Yao is right. This king's chance has finally come. King Qi's eyes lit up and he laughed heartily. Yao Guangyi had assured him time and time again that nothing would go wrong, but in the end, he still messed it up. The reason why he suppressed his anger was because Old Master Yao had personally appeared and told him that he still had a chance. If he made good use of this chance, he wouldn't even need to eradicate the Wang clan. Instead, he could topple both the King of Song and the Wang clan. Furthermore, he would never be able to make a comeback. After all, the one who wanted to topple him wasn't him but the Holy Emperor, the Son of Heaven. Ha ha ha, Li Qingqi, Li Qingqi. Do you think that you are being loyal? Are you trying to go against His Majesty? King Qi laughed heartily. If not for Old Master Yao's guidance, he would still be unaware of the Consort Taizhen incident. His Majesty had already made up his mind that regardless of the price he had to pay, regardless of the objections of the officials, he would bring Consort Taizhen into the palace. In the royal palace, there were already people who addressed Consort Taizhen as Empress in private. Without His Majesty's approval, no one would dare to do such a thing. Even that Consort Taizhen probably didn't know that even though half of the officials in the royal court were against her and the situation seemed to be extremely disadvantageous to her. But in truth, her position as Consort Taizhen was already in the bag. Old Master Yao's eyes were as sharp as a candle, and he was able to discern people accurately. He had followed the Holy Emperor for decades, so there was no way he would be wrong about this. As an official, it's one thing for you to argue for the military affairs of the country in the royal court, but to think that you would even interfere in His Majesty's family affairs. The King of Song, you are breaking the rules. Heh heh, you're courting death yourself, no one can stop you. Go, go, Duke Jiu's birthday banquet, you better drag that old fellow down with you. King Qi laughed heartily. The matter of Consort Taizhen had caused a huge uproar in the royal court, and all of the officials were bringing out their moral principles to advise His Majesty against it. However, King Qi didn't care about it at all. In fact, he was even more eager for those fellows to cause a huge uproar. In the end, it would be for the King of Song to lead the officials and cause a huge uproar that even His Majesty would find himself in a difficult position. That would be the best. Wang Chong didn't know of the commotion outside, nor was he aware that Yuzhen Palace and King Qi residence were currently revolving around the matter of Consort Taizhen. At this moment, Wang Chong was looking in the direction of the entrance of the Four Quarters Embassy. A huge commotion was happening there. With the arrival of friends, enemies would follow. It seemed like the old master's birthday banquet wasn't just attended by friends. What are you looking at? I'm here to offer my blessings to Duke Jiu, can't I? A voice that seemed to take advantage of his seniority and was very rude came from his direction. Old fellow, don't go overboard. Do you have any ties with Duke Jiu? Elder Ma's voice sounded from the entrance of the Four Quarters Embassy, and he seemed to be stopping the other party from entering. Heh, do I need a stable driver like you to teach me whether I have any ties or not? Even Duke Jiu didn't say that I'm not allowed in, so who do you think you are? Scram! Following which, a loud explosion sounded, and the entire Four Quarters Embassy shook. A powerful shockwave shook the surroundings, seemingly stemming from the friendship between Elder Ma and that person. Wang Chong rushed over, and in just a few steps, he saw a white-haired elder who seemed as though he could even crush a mountain with his might. He walked in through the entrance with a large group of people. With the golden token on his waist lit up, even the imperial army didn't dare to stop him. "Bastard, it's that old tortoise again." Wang Chong walked to the corner of the fake mountain, and upon seeing that person, he cursed inwardly. No one dared to act so brazenly in grandfather's four-quarters embassy. The only ones who dared to do so, and even the imperial army didn't dare to stop them, were those old officials of the old master's generation. However, different from Elder Ma, Elder Zhao, and the others, the person before him was the old master's political rival. Su Xiao was the old master's rival in the royal court back then. When he was young, he often opposed the old master on military affairs. The old master was also hot-blooded when he was young, and he didn't see eye to eye with him either. The two of them had submitted countless memorials to each other. Back then, during the coup in the royal court, Su Xiao was supposed to be impeached. However, at the very last moment, he actually led a group of soldiers to rescue the emperor. This allowed him to escape from that political calamity, and after the coup, he was conferred the title of Duke of Su, allowing him to move freely in the Tang dynasty. When the old master was young, he was hot-blooded and hot-blooded. As he grew older, he gradually cultivated his character, and his self-restraint improved. On the other hand, Duke of Su, Su Xiao, didn't change at all. He was still the same as before. This old fellow was already very old, and he was only a few years younger than grandfather. He had retired from the court long ago, but his temper had not changed since he had been at odds with his grandfather all his life. Every year, during grandfather's birthday banquet, this fellow would come uninvited and cause a ruckus with his children and grandchildren. In his previous life, Wang Chong secretly scolded him as Old Tortoise, and once, he heard it and pulled on the other party's ear. Chapter 105. You little bastards, wait outside for me. Play and look around as you please. I want to see who in the Four Quarters Embassy dares to stop you. If anyone dares to disrespect me, I'll poke a huge hole in his head. The old man said haughtily, wait till I meet that old fool of the Wang clan, then I'll bring you all back. Yes, grandfather. We've seen your might, so feel free to go. The Su clan's grandsons smiled cheekily as they lowered their heads to fawn on their grandfather shamelessly. Bastards! From afar, cousin Wang Li, cousin Wang Zhuyan, and cousin Wang Liang had already stepped forward to welcome them. Looking at the Su clan's group of old and young, they glared at them furiously. These fellows could be considered as frequent visitors to grandfather's birthday banquet. They claimed that they were here to offer their blessings. But in truth, they were here to cause trouble. No one could understand why grandfather would allow these unwelcome fellows in every single time. Heh, how does the Wang clan treat their guests? Don't forget that we're guests. Didn't your Wang clan teach you this? The grandsons of the old man held their heads high, their faces full of arrogance. He, brats, if the one who said those words was your grandfather, I might still give him some face. However, you brats, scram to the side obediently. The old man also chimed in by the side. Old Tortoise, is this all you've got? Despite your age, all you know is to bully us juniors. Wang Chong finally couldn't hold it in any longer. Shwa! In an instant, everyone's gazes were drawn over. Hearing the words Old Tortoise, the old man's face reddened, as though he had been injected with a layer of chicken blood. By the side, the faces of his grandsons darkened, and they glared at him viciously. Wang Chong didn't dodge. Walking out from the fake mountain, he calmly walked toward Old Man Su. Every clan had a few unwelcome guests. Old Man Su was one of them. Wang Chong couldn't stand his arrogance. When there was a change in the palace, I hid in my own turtle shell and didn't move at all. Only when the dust had almost settled did he send a group of family soldiers over to claim the title of High Duke Su. Old man, if you're not an old turtle, then who is an old turtle? Wang Chong walked over and said rudely. In his previous life, Wang Chong did not give him the name Old Tortoise randomly. It was not a coincidence. In Wang Chong's opinion, the reason why he could get the position of High Duke Su was because he was afraid of death. When he saw that the matter was settled, he used his skills. Brat! Old man Su turned his head around, his entire body trembling. His face was red with anger. Back then, Su Xiao had arrived late in the palace coup and had been criticized by the court officials. It was also Su Xiao's greatest sore spot. Who would have thought that Wang Chong would dig it out today? Come here, come here. I promise I won't bounce you from one wall to the other. Wang Chong was not that stupid. Seeing old man Su's eyes turn red, he hurriedly retreated. High Duke Su, since you've come in. At this time, a voice that was neither loud nor soft sounded in everyone's ears. Heh, little bastard, on account of your grandfather, I won't argue with you for now. Hearing this voice, old man Su's tears turned to laughter, his anger turned to joy. With a flick of his sleeve, he raised his head high and walked in with large strides with an expression that said, I won't bicker with you. Behind him, old man Su's group of grandchildren also followed suit, each of them holding their heads high. Old Tortoise and Little Tortoise are really jackals of the same tribe. Wang Chong cursed in his heart. The old man's seniority was too old. He was from the same generation as his old man. Wang Chong could not do anything to him. He could only grab hold of his sore spot and make him unhappy. Brat, this name of yours is pretty good. The old fellow seems to be fearful of you. Look at him, he seems to be getting anxious. Cousin Wang Zhuyan walked over with a smile on her face. Old man Su was a typical uninvited guest. He didn't come over to cause trouble every year from this year. Wang Zhuyan had already been like this since young. But this was the first time she saw him getting so anxious that his eyes turned red. If he dares to cause trouble here again, we'll call him Old Tortoise. Let's see how anxious he is. Wang Zhuyan couldn't help but laugh at the very end. Wang Chong also couldn't help but laugh as well. Honestly speaking, even though old man Su was a disrespectful old man, making use of his seniority to cause trouble every single time it was grandfather's birthday. Every time it was his grandfather's birthday, he would come and cause trouble. But other than that, he didn't do anything else. Wang Chong's impression of him wasn't too bad. Calling him an old turtle was like grabbing his sore spot and making him unhappy. That was enough. Humph. Just as Wang Chong was speaking with cousin Wang Zhuyan, no one noticed that the eldest granddaughter of the Yi clan, Yi Yinping, was looking at them from afar. Harumphing lightly, she seemed to have thought of something, and she suddenly walked toward the grandchildren of Duke of Su, Su Xiao. Wang Chong. All of a sudden, a loud bellow attracted everyone's attention. Wang Chong turned around and saw a young and arrogant figure standing out from the crowd. Do you have the guts to fight me? He extended a finger and pointed it at Wang Chong from a distance, his voice brimming with arrogance and haughtiness. For an instant, the surroundings of the erudite pavilion fell silent. This sudden noise attracted everyone's attention from all directions. The Imperial Army, guards, cousins Wang Li, Wang Liang, big aunt, uncle, as well as the grandchildren of Duke of Hu, Elder Ma, Elder Zhao, Elder Sun. All of them turned their gazes over. This was especially so for the descendants of his grandfather's old subordinates who had just acknowledged Wang Chong at his grandfather's behest. They all looked over with anticipation in their eyes. Wang Chong was someone whom their grandfather acknowledged, but honestly speaking, they didn't know much about Wang Chong. Su Xian. Wang Chong narrowed his eyes. He recognized the person immediately. This person was none other than the most talented grandson of the younger generation of the Su clan, Su Xian. However, this wasn't the reason why Wang Chong recognized him. Rather, it was because he was around the same age as him, but his reputation in the capital was far greater than his. Others gave him the nickname Su-yi-1, which meant that among his peers, Su Xian stood out like a crane among chickens. Wang Chong knew that even though he was only 16, his cultivation was already at Origin Energy Tier 7. His cultivation was much higher than that of Wei Hao and Gao Fei. Even Su Bai, whom Wang Chong had sent to prison, couldn't compare to him. Other than Wang Chong's elder brother, cousin, and those of Yao Feng's generation, there was basically no one who could defeat him. In the capital, Su Xian seemed to be the leader of his peers, outshining them all. However, Wang Chong was perplexed. Su Xian had always been arrogant, and he looked down on those of his generation. Why would he suddenly challenge him? Humph. Wang Chong, it can't be that you're afraid. Are you still a man? Do you expect us to bow down to you and address you as young Master Chong? Suddenly, the cold, disdainful, and mocking voice of a young lady sounded. In an instant, everyone's attention was focused on Wang Chong. Wang Chong's heart jolted. Following the voice, he saw the snow-white, jade-like figure behind Su Xian, Yi Yinping, with a haughty expression reminiscent of a peacock. So it's her. Wang Chong chuckled. He was still wondering why Su Xian would suddenly turn his attention to him, but it turned out that Yi Yinping was the culprit. It was rumored that the martial arts genius of the Su clan, Su Xian, had been wooing Yi Yinping, but he had been rejected mercilessly. From the looks of it now, Yi Yinping must have made some conditions to Su Xian to provoke him in order to embarrass him. Yinping, don't worry. I'll make sure that lad dies a miserable death for you. Su Xian turned around and spoke with a gentle voice. As he spoke, he subconsciously reached out to grab Yi Yinping's hand. Scram! With a look of disgust, Yi Yinping slapped away Su Xian's hand without any hesitation. Su Xian was placed in an awkward position. His hand froze in midair as he vented his anger on Wang Chong. Wang Chong! Do you dare to fight with me or not? To think that your Wang clan is a clan of ministers and generals, to think that you don't even have a single man. Fine. I'll fight with you. Before Su Xian could finish his words, Wang Chong had already cut him off with a resolute and decisive answer. Su Xian was powerful and experienced. In the capital, there wasn't a single scion of the same age who was a match for him. Wang Chong had been cultivating diligently for a period of time recently, and he wanted to find someone to spar with so as to test the results of his cultivation. Even though Su Xian's strength was a level higher than his, Wang Chong didn't fear him. Besides, Wang Chong swept his gaze across the crowd. Duke of Hu, Elder Ma, Elder Zhao, Elder Sun. These were the grandchildren of his grandfather's old subordinates, and they were looking at him expectantly. Even though they were forced by his grandfather to acknowledge him as young Master Chong, they didn't understand him at all. If he were to back down at this moment, they wouldn't know how they would view him as young Master Chong. This was the reason why Yi Yinping incited Su Xian to deal with him. At this moment, he couldn't back down. Good. Su Xian was taken aback. It took a long while for him to recover from his shock. With a cold gaze, he said, Wang Chong, you asked for it. Fists and legs have no eyes, so don't blame me for going too far later on. Even if it wasn't for Yi Yinping, just the fact that Wang Chong had insulted his grandfather as an old tortoise was more than enough for Su Xian to teach him a lesson. What better way to vent his grandfather's anger than to trample on his grandson in the Four Quarters Embassy on Duke Jiu's 70th birthday? Pine. Su Xian stomped on the ground, raising a cloud of dust. Then, a powerful aura emanated from his body. With a darkened face, Su Xian walked toward Wang Chong with a domineering aura. Wait a moment. Wang Chong suddenly shouted. Why? Are you going back on your words? Su Xian said with an awful complexion. If you want me to fight with you, you have to have a stake. Wang Chong said. Just a moment ago, he suddenly had a very good idea. Yi Yinping might have done him a huge favor. What stake? Su Xian halted his footsteps and frowned. He had sparred with so many people in the capital, but he had never heard of a stake. Humph, doesn't your Su clan have a bone-forging pill? You want to challenge me? Sure. But you have to hand over a bone-forging pill. I don't want to make a loss. Wang Chong wagged his finger. Wine. Chapter 106. There was an elder in the Su family who became an alchemist when he was young. Not many people knew about this, but it was not a secret among the nobles. Relying on the occasional pills given by this elder of the family, the descendants of the Su family always had a much greater advantage in terms of cultivation compared to the descendants of other aristocratic families. This pill was called the bone-forging pill, and it was a pill that only the Su family's elder possessed. It was not for sale, and because the production of this pill was very low, it was never given to outsiders. The most famous legend about refining elixir bones was 3 elixirs refining leopard bones. With just 3 elixirs, one would be able to refine the most basic level of the panther bone without even cultivating. Raising one's root bone had always been known to be difficult. The Su clan's bone-forging pill could refine a layer of panther bone with just 3 pills. The value of this pill could be imagined. However, despite this convenience, the Su family could not provide them with an unlimited supply. The bone-forging pill was extremely difficult to refine. In a year, the Su family's elder had only given the Su family 5 or 6 pills. Moreover, it would have to be shared equally among many children. Therefore, the Su family was very stingy towards this kind of bone-forging pill. However, Wang Chong knew that Su Xian definitely had more than one. The aristocratic families had always had a tradition of focusing on nurturing their most outstanding disciples. In the Su family, Su Xian's strength was not the highest, but his talent was the highest. He was undoubtedly a genius that the Su family would nurture. He definitely had more than one bone-forging pill on him. Are you kidding me? How could we casually give something like the bone-forging pill to you? Before Su Xian could speak, the eldest brother of the Su clan, Su Jing, spoke up. In the past, the old man and Wang Chong's grandfather were political enemies. When they were young, they fought fiercely and impeached each other countless times. Thus, the Su clan had never been afraid to suppress the descendants of the Wang clan in such a public setting, to help their grandfather vent his anger and avenge the grievance from back then. But the bone-forging pill was another matter. Even the Su clan didn't have enough for themselves, so why would the Wang clan brat think that the Su clan would? Isn't this fellow indulging in the wildest fantasies? Su Jing now suspected that Yi Yinping, who was backing his little brother, was deliberately colluding with Wang Chong for the Su family's bone-tempering pills. Humph. Scram if you don't have the guts. Wang Li said coldly. He and Su Jing belonged to the same generation, and it was rare for Wang Li and Wang Chong to see eye to eye with the Su clan. The two brothers did not have a good impression of each other. But since Grandpa didn't say anything, they couldn't do anything. Furthermore, this was the Four Quarters Embassy, a place that the Holy Emperor had specially opened for his grandfather. If he went too far here, the Su family would know the consequences. Therefore, Wang Li wasn't too worried about the battle between Wang Chong and Su Xian. You! Su Jing was furious. But before he could say anything, he heard a voice in his ears. Humph, isn't it just a promised bone-refining pill? I promise you. Brother Xian. Su Jing was shocked. It was absolutely forbidden to take out the bone-forging pill as a wager. Once they started this, if everyone else did the same thing and asked the Su family to take out bone-refining pills at every turn, how could the Su family continue doing business? Big brother, I know what to do. I don't need you to teach me. Su Xian spoke bluntly, and it caused Su Jing's expression to turn livid and extremely unsightly. This bastard. Relying on his superior talent to win the favor of his grandfather, he was getting more and more overboard. To think that he would dare to disregard even his big brother. Su Xian didn't care about his big brother's expression at all. He wasn't a fool, and he knew what he was doing. Wang Chong, I can take out the bone refining pill. Su Xian reached into his robe and took out a small but exquisite purple brocade box. The bone refining pill was the most precious item he had on him, and it wasn't safe to place it anywhere. Thus, Su Xian always carried it with him. But what about you, Wang Chong? What are you going to use as a wager? It can't be that you think that you don't need to pay a price. Su Xian stretched out his hand and said coldly. He wasn't that foolish. Since Wang Chong wanted his bone refining pill, he had to take out something of equal value. Fine. If you use a bone refining pill, I'll take out a Wuxia steel sword. What do you think? Wang Chong was astounded. A Wuxia steel sword. The Su clan's disciples were moved. After the incident with Su Bai, the matter of Wang Chong selling swords was no longer a secret. Because of Wang Chong's Wuxia steel sword, Su Bai had suffered greatly in the Supreme Court of Justice and had yet to be fished out. There wasn't anyone in the capital who didn't know about this matter. At the same time, Wang Chong's wood steel sword appeared before everyone's eyes. The Wuxia steel sword is known as the #1 sword in the world, and one can be sold for 40 to 50,000 gold taels. Exchanging a Wuxia steel sword for a bone refining pill isn't a waste. At this moment, even Su Jing didn't oppose it. Su Xian was greatly moved. There were many ways to increase one's strength, and the bone refining pill was one of them. However, an incomparably sharp sword that could cut through iron like mud was another. Exchanging a bone refining pill for a Wuxia steel sword worth 40 to 50,000 gold taels was definitely a good deal. Ha, good. Su Xian laughed heartily. With a flick of his finger, he tossed the box containing the bone refining pill to Su Xian. Big brother, help me hold on to it first. If I lose, give it to the Wang clan. If I win, Wang Chong, I believe that your Wang clan won't dare to turn down my offer. Wang Chong was delighted that Su Xian was willing to take out the bone refining pill. He had to put in a lot of effort to cultivate the dragon bone art. If he had the bone refining pill, he would be able to advance to the next level. In the future, through some other means, he might just be able to reach Tiger Bone swiftly. Come, Su Xian. Having gotten what he wanted, Wang Chong walked forward. Brother Chong, are you confident? Wang Zhuyan called out worriedly. This cousin of hers had always been idling about. Even though his personality seemed to have changed recently, she had no idea how his martial arts were. Don't worry. Wang Chong chuckled. He shot his cousin a "don't worry" gaze before walking toward the square between him and Su Xian. Yin Ping, don't worry. I only need 3 breaths to get rid of that lad. At the same time, Su Xian also shot a reassuring gaze behind him with a gentle expression. 3 breaths. Yin Ping frowned in dissatisfaction. One move. 1 move is enough. Su Xian hurriedly corrected himself. Humph, go on. Yin Ping said coldly. Her expression wasn't pleasant at all. She didn't like to lower her head to that lad from the Wang clan. His cultivation was far beneath hers. She didn't know what kind of bewitching potion her grandfather drank, but with just a few words, he was willing to acknowledge him as young master. She, Yin Ping, was the pride of the heavens. She controlled her own fate and didn't submit to anyone. Why should she lower her head to a weakling who was beneath her? She wanted to make use of this opportunity to humiliate him so that her grandfather would give up on the idea. As for Su Xian, did he really think that she would be with him? A lousy toad lusting after the flesh of a swan. Oblivious to Yi Yinping's thoughts, Su Xian walked toward the square with a smile on his face. Wang Chong, take out your weapon. Otherwise, I'm afraid that you won't stand a chance. Around 50 zhang away from Wang Chong, Su Xian stopped and pointed at Wang Chong arrogantly. He had heard of Wang Chong's reputation, and it wasn't very good. If not for Yi Yinping, he wouldn't even be qualified to challenge him. Of those who challenged him, 8 out of 10 had a higher cultivation than him. I don't have a weapon. Wang Chong clapped his hands. This was the truth. He had given one sword to Zhao Fengchen and the other to the old master, leaving the rest at home. Humph, arrogant and conceited. Fury flashed across Su Xian's eyes. You asked for it. Since that's the case, don't blame me for this. Su Xian's bones creaked, and the stone floor beneath his feet creaked as well, as though it was unable to withstand his weight. Upon reaching Origin Energy Tier 7, one's strength would rise significantly, and every single one of their movements would carry immense might. Su Xian's best record was killing a berserk male elephant with a single punch. This was something that the Su clan was prepared to offer to the royal family, but in the second month, it suddenly went berserk and charged out of the fences into the streets. Su Xian killed it with a single punch, causing blood to flow from its 7 apertures, and it lay motionless on the ground. Even though he didn't have any bottom line toward the girl he liked, Su Xian's strength was undeniable. If Wang Chong thought that he would be able to take the bone-forging pill from his hands easily, he would be gravely mistaken. Elephant Fragrance Art. An aura surged beneath Su Xian's feet, and the air around him began to distort. A powerful aura began to emanate from Su Xian's body. Upon seeing this scene, even Yi Yinping's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise, let alone the others. Elephant Fragrance Art. It's Elephant Fragrance Art. Astonished voices sounded in the surroundings. Those who were able to enter the Four Quarters Embassy were either wealthy or noble, and their knowledge far surpassed that of ordinary people. Soon, someone recognized the technique. Hearing the exclamations in the surroundings, the offspring of the Su clan revealed a proud expression. The Su clan specialized in the business of elephants, and it wasn't without reason that they came into contact with elephants. Back then, the old master had contributed greatly to the rescue of the emperor, and the royal family bestowed upon him several royal martial arts manuals. One of them was Elephant Fragrance Art. While others were still cultivating inferior martial arts like steel chains traversing the river, the Su clan was already able to cultivate a powerful martial art like the Elephant Fragrance Art. Once one mastered this martial art, it would be hard to find a match in the same realm. It was through this Elephant Fragrance Art that Su Xian was invincible among his peers. If Wang Chong were to use a weapon, he might still stand a chance. However, if he were to use his bare hands, he would be courting death. Elephant Fragrance Art. Su Xian bellowed. In an instant, his mind and body became one, and the air around him exploded. At the same time, the trumpeting of an elephant echoed in the air. Su Xian's body was shrouded in explosive air, and as though a massive wild elephant, he charged toward Wang Chong. If he were to be struck by this attack, even a mountain would be torn apart. Not good. Young Master Chong is in danger. In the surroundings, the faces of the descendants from the Zhao, Sun, Ma, and Hu clans darkened. Wang Qi and Wang Zhuyan's faces paled. Just as they were about to step forward to save him, something unexpected happened. Boom! In the blink of an eye, just as Su Xian was charging toward Wang Chong with the speed of a thunderbolt, Wang Chong's figure suddenly leaped into the air. In that instant, Wang Chong seemed to have disappeared. In its place was a vivid, lifelike, and extremely vigorous flood dragon in the sky. The serpent dragon circled in the air before diving down. Heavy punch. Gathering all of his strength, Wang Chong fused the dragon bone art and his heavy punch together before punching downward. Boom! The ground trembled, the stone slabs cracked, and dust billowed in the dueling ground. Indistinctly, one could hear the cry of an elephant. Then, under the dumbfounded gazes of the crowd, Su Xian fell to the ground as though a wooden pillar. Boom. Chapter 107. Everyone was dumbfounded, unable to believe the outcome. Even Yi Yinping's eyebrows shot up, and a hint of astonishment flashed across her eyes. She was well aware of Wang Chang's capabilities. At the very most, he was only at Origin Energy Tier 5 or Tier 6. It was impossible for him to exceed Tier 6. On the other hand, Su Xian was at Origin Energy Tier 7, and he possessed extraordinary martial arts cultivation. There were at least 80 experts who had sparred with him. Regardless of whether it was in terms of experience, reaction, strength, or speed, Su Xian was definitely the cream of the crop among his peers. This was also the reason why she had chosen him. Not to mention, the Duke of Su residence had a formidable, fragrant elephant technique. Yet, Su Xian was easily defeated by a single move from Wang Chong. Su Xian's speed, reaction, and ability to adapt to changing situations were definitely not bad. Even if he was struck down from above like a mountain, he would definitely be able to adapt to changing situations within a short period of time and dodge his opponent's attack or counterattack. Yet, it seemed like Su Xian had fallen easily. This could only mean one thing. Wang Chang's speed, reaction, and grasp of timing were even faster and more formidable than Su Xian's. I have really underestimated him. Yi Yinping's eyebrows shot up. For the first time, she felt that she had underestimated Wang Chong. However, I'm still lacking. Let's talk about it when you catch up to me. Yi Yinping harumphed lightly, and like a proud peacock, she turned around and left. Her cultivation had already surpassed Origin Energy Realm. Even though Wang Chang's cultivation was decent, it was only decent. She, Yi Yinping, would never submit to a weakling bone-forging pill, hand it over. After defeating Su Xian, Wang Chong walked over and stretched out his hand toward the eldest son of the Su clan, Su Jing. Humph. Don't get gleeful, you were just lucky this time. Su Jing's face steeled. He didn't believe that Wang Chong could defeat Su Xian. In his view, Su Xian's defeat was just luck. Whether it's luck or not isn't up to you to decide. Hurry up and hand over my pill. Wang Chong said coldly. Without the bone-forging pill, he would have fought for nothing. He would not do such a thing. Even though Su Jing was reluctant to hand over the bone-forging pill in front of so many people, he could only reluctantly hand it over. Brat, well done. A familiar voice sounded from behind, and Wang Zhuyan walked over with a smile. Cousin. Wang Chong called out. I almost thought you were going to lose. Wang Zhuyan smiled, as though saying, I've underestimated you. How is that possible? How could I lose to that brat? Wang Chong raised his head and glanced at Su Xian, who was surrounded by the Su family disciples, who were pinching and massaging his philtrum. Alright, enough with the nonsense. Do you think I, second sister, don't know how capable you are? Wang Zhuyan scolded jokingly. She still didn't dare to believe that Wang Chong would suddenly become so formidable. In her view, Su Xian's defeat was largely due to luck. Wang Chong chuckled and didn't argue with her. It was good for cousin to think that it was a stroke of luck. At least, he wouldn't scare them with his sudden transformation. After fooling around with his cousin for a while, Wang Chong took the bone-forging pill and anxiously found a secluded place to start his cultivation. Pill-forging bone was no small matter, and such pills were simply too rare. In his previous life, Wang Chong had no affinity with such pills. This was the first time Wang Chong had obtained such a bone-forging pill. A change in one's root bone would bring about a qualitative change. If Wang Chong could break through to Tiger Bone Realm, everything would be different. It was good to gain the recognition of Elder Yi, Duke of Hu, and the other elders, but personal strength was equally important. This was also the reason why Wang Chong accepted Su Xian's challenge. If he were to lose today, how would the grandsons of the elders view him? At that time, everything would be different, ha. Wang Chong opened the pocket-sized purple box, and an intense medicinal aroma drifted into his nose. Within the purple box, there was a thumb-sized, glistening, jade-white pill that looked like a suet fat ball immediately reflected in his eyes. So this is the bone-forging pill. A hint of astonishment flashed across Wang Chong's eyes. This pill was refined from the inside out, and it exuded an aura of purity. It was no wonder why it was so powerful, capable of altering one's root bone. That elder of the Su clan was definitely an incredible apothecary. It was difficult to cultivate one's root bone, and the Su clan's bone-forging pill was one of the few things he knew that could alter one's root bone. Gulong. Leaning against the fake mountain, Wang Chong sat cross-legged on the ground and swallowed the bone-forging pill. There were Imperial Army members patrolling the Four Quarters Embassy, and not even a fly could escape their eyes. Thus, Wang Chong didn't have to worry that someone would do anything to him while he was cultivating. Wang. As soon as the pill was swallowed, a powerful medicinal energy immediately surged from Wang Chong's dantian. This medicinal energy was gentle, but it was extremely powerful. As though a hurricane, it swept through Wang Chong's entire body. Pilipila. The immense medicinal energy caused the transformation of Wang Chong's bones, and a series of light crackling sounds could be heard from the joints. This energy was no longer limited to the joints, but instead, it began to affect the most important bone in Wang Chong's body, his spine. The spine was known as the dragon bone of the human body, and it was the source of a martial artist's strength. Every movement and every bit of energy had to be channeled through the dragon bone. Even the Ren and Du meridians were attached to the dragon bone. The reason why ferocious beasts were stronger than humans was because they possessed a stronger dragon bone, allowing them to utilize more of their strength. Ah! Wang Chong suddenly let out a pained roar from the depths of his throat. Tiny beads of sweat seeped out from his forehead like a drizzle. The transformation of one's root bone was earth-shattering, and every time it happened, it would inevitably be accompanied by immense pain. And now, everything had finally reached the most crucial moment. Rumble. The intense pain was like a tidal wave that howled and circled around his body. After an unknown period of time, the intense pain gradually weakened and became smaller. Hu. Wang Chong let out a long breath and stood up from the ground. He felt his entire body drenched in sweat. I've finally succeeded. A brand new energy filled his body. Wang Chong felt that compared to before, he had finally broken through a bottleneck and reached a new realm. Panther Bone Third Layer. This was the highest realm of the Panther Bone. If he could advance another level, he would reach the realm of Tiger Bone. This was a cultivation that only many martial generals possessed. Wang Chong let out a long sigh of relief and stretched his bones. A series of crackling sounds came from all over his body. Wang Chong could feel that his bones had become denser. Panther Bone Third Layer, reaching the pinnacle of the Panther Bone, didn't just bring about a change in strength and root bone, it also brought about a change in speed. Ji. Ja. The sound of birds chirping echoed in his ears. Turning around, Wang Chong saw a sparrow jumping around on a bamboo branch 5 to 6 steps away, chirping non-stop. The Four Quarters Embassy was extremely peaceful, so such sparrows weren't uncommon. So. A glint flashed across Wang Chong's eyes. All of a sudden, the muscles on his body constricted before exploding forth. As though a sharp arrow, he dashed straight into the bamboo forest. His speed was so fast that it caused a huge gale in the surroundings. Ji. Ja. The sparrow instinctively sensed danger, and a sliver of fear flashed across its round eyes. Then, with a flap of its wings, it soared into the sky. However, even though the sparrow's reaction was fast, Wang Chong's was even faster. The sparrow had barely flown a few chi into the air when a slender and powerful palm reached out from the side. With a flash of lightning, the palm grabbed the sparrow tightly. Ji. Zha zha. The sparrow widened its eyes in fear. It tried to flap its wings, but it was unable to move at all. Panther Bone 3 Dan is indeed capable of capturing birds. Wang Chong looked at the sparrow in his palm and chuckled. This type of sparrow was extremely alert, and it was impossible for humans to approach it. Without incredible speed, it was impossible to capture it. This was also the result of Wang Chong consuming the bone-forging pill and reaching Panther Bone 3 Dan. His bones had become denser, and his muscles possessed greater explosive strength. However, the flaw of the panther bone is obvious. Its lack of stamina. The amount of energy required to capture a bird is even greater than that of a battle. With a bitter smile, Wang Chong loosened his grip. Looking at the frightened sparrow, it chirped noisily as it flew out of his palm. At the same time, large amounts of hot sweat flowed down from every part of Wang Chong's body. A fatigued expression could be seen on Wang Chong's face. When a fighter reaches Panther Bone 3 Dan, their strength and speed would be boosted significantly. Even though it couldn't be compared to a real leopard, it was still very fast. However, this wasn't a true speed-type cultivation technique. The result of such a burst of potential was the current state that Wang Chong was in. His entire body was exhausted, and he wouldn't even have the strength to run a dozen meters. This was also the reason why, even though the leopard was known as the fastest animal in the animal world, this fastest was limited to a distance of 100 meters. Beyond 100 meters, the leopard would have to rest, and the hunt would be a failure. This was also the reason why Panther Bone got its name. Such a short burst of potential wasn't practical on the battlefield. It was no different from courting death. Thus, to raise one's speed, one had to practice cultivation techniques that could greatly increase one's speed. For example, the specter steps of that female assassin. After resting for a moment to recover his stamina, Wang Chong walked over to the erudite pavilion. The grandsons of the Su clan had already disappeared from the square. After Su Xian's humiliation, Su Xiao didn't have the face to remain here any longer. After greeting his grandfather, he left hurriedly with his grandsons. Every year, Su Xiao would use the excuse of offering his blessings to cause trouble for Duke Jiu's birthday. However, this time, he failed completely. In the Four Quarters Embassy, the guests who came to offer their blessings came and went in waves. Some were here purely to congratulate Wang Chong, and some were here with malicious intentions. Wang Chong recognized some of them, and there were some that Wang Chong didn't. However, gradually, Wang Chong felt that something was amiss. The people who came later to offer their blessings all had a lot on their minds. It seemed that it wasn't as simple as just offering their blessings, but something else. Wang Chong even saw a few influential officials in the royal court. Not only did they pay respects to his grandfather in the erudite pavilion, they even pulled Big Uncle along to discuss something before leaving. Every single one of them seemed worried. Big Uncle was the same as them, and he even made an exception to escort them all the way to the entrance of the Four Quarters Embassy. It's for the matter of Consort Tai Zhen. As this thought flashed through Wang Chong's mind, he suddenly understood, and then he was struck by shock. Judging from the atmosphere in the Four Quarters Embassy, the matter of Consort Tai Zhen was far more serious than he had imagined. At this moment, Wang Chong suddenly recalled something. Chapter 108. Even though the regional commander's system and the Hu strategy were far more important to the future of the empire than the Consort Taizhen incident, Wang Chong still felt that the Consort Taizhen incident was far more important. However, Wang Chong knew that this matter was undoubtedly the most important matter in the royal court, and it had captured the attention of nearly all of the officials. The harm that the regional commander's policy and the Hu strategy would bring to the empire was a matter of the future, but the Consort Taizhen incident was a matter of the present. Its influence in the imperial court and the number of ministers affected was definitely the greatest in the history of this dynasty. Big Uncle is still worried about her. Wang Chong looked at his big uncle, who was still in the midst of a frantic discussion with an imperial censor, and he couldn't help but feel a little worried. Big Uncle was an influential official in the royal court, but this identity of his had become a hindrance to him. On top of that, grandfather's lofty standing had made him the leader of those who opposed the consort Taishan incident. In the future, once the matter was settled, Big Uncle's punishment would probably be the heaviest. This isn't good. Wang Chong lowered his head and frowned. The consort Taishan incident involved the duties of an official, as well as the etiquette of the feudal system. Wang Chong was certain that if he hadn't brought up the regional commander's policy and disrupted Big Uncle's plans, he would have surely brought up the matter of consort Taishan incident and sought the support of the old master. Wang Chong wanted to persuade him, but he knew that Big Uncle might agree with him on the matter of the regional commander's policy. However, Big Uncle would never agree with him on the matter of consort Taishan incident. Not only would he not agree with him, he would even reprimand him sternly. Even the old master wouldn't stand on his side. Big Uncle wouldn't listen to anyone's advice when it involved his duties as an official. This was also the reason why Wang Chong didn't bring up the matter in the conference hall. His Highness the King of Song has arrived. Just as Wang Chong's mind was in turmoil, a resounding voice suddenly sounded from the direction of the entrance. Hong long long, the ground quaked, and Wang Chong seemed to hear the sound of a tidal wave. Outside the Four Quarters Embassy, at the end of the street, a carriage drove over. A majestic aura emanated from the carriage as though the rising sun. However, this aura exuded a domineering aura that was both gentle and domineering. He's finally here. Sensing this aura, Wang Chong heaved a long sigh of relief. The Wang clan had a close relationship with King Song for 3 generations, and after the consort Taishan incident, all of the influential officials in the royal court, including Big Uncle Wang Zhen, had followed King Song's orders. To resolve this crisis and prevent the consort Taishan incident from affecting half of the officials in the royal court, this matter had to fall on the shoulders of the King of Song. Your Highness. You're finally here. At the entrance of the Four Quarters Embassy, upon seeing the arrival of the King of Song, Wang Zhen's spirits rose. On this day, there were too many things that distracted him. But in Wang Zhen's heart, there was no doubt that the matter regarding consort Taishan was still on his mind. This matter implicated half of the officials in the royal court, and it had already become a huge political storm in the Tang dynasty. Have you spoken to the old master? The carriage door opened, and King Song, dressed in imperial robes, stepped out. His expression was grim, and it seemed like he had a lot on his mind. Not yet. Wang Zhen shook his head. What the old master was concerned about at the moment was how he could remonstrate the Holy Emperor and stop the regional commanders and utilize the Hu strategy. At this moment, Wang Zhen really didn't know how he should approach him. In the end, he could only wait for the arrival of the King of Song. Your Highness, the matter of consort Taishan incident is no small matter. This concerns the reputation of the officials and His Majesty's clean reputation. No matter what, we have to stop this matter. As a father, how can he take his son's wife as his consort? If this matter were to spread, wouldn't the clean reputation of the Holy Emperor be tarnished? He would become a laughingstock of the populace. His Majesty is currently engrossed in lust, and he doesn't even realize it. He will surely wake up after a period of time, but by then, it will already be too late. As officials, no matter what, we can't allow His Majesty to commit such a mistake. We have to find a way to wake him up from his lust. Wang Zhen said gravely. Isn't that what I'm thinking as well? A father taking his son's wife as his consort is a scandal of the royal family, as well as a scandal of the Tang dynasty. The King of Song nodded, but his heart was also filled with worry. It's a pity that with King Qi and the Yao clan behind the scenes, more than half of the officials support His Majesty taking Yang Taishan into the royal palace as his consort. His Majesty is deeply engrossed in lust, so I can only think of a way to get Duke Jiao to lend me a hand. This is also the main reason why I rushed over to offer my blessings. Duke Jiao is an elder of the royal court, and he wields great influence in the royal court. At the same time, he is also a meritorious minister, and His Majesty has great trust in him. If he were to appear, he would surely be able to change this scandal of the royal family and prevent a repeat of the previous dynasty. That's what I'm thinking as well. His Majesty's clean reputation isn't easy to achieve, it can't be ruined in the hands of a woman. Wang Zhen sighed. Your Highness, please come with me. Something happened along the way, so allow me to explain it to you in the future. Wang Zhen extended his hand and led the King of Song to where the old master was resting. Watching this sight from afar, Wang Chong slowly retracted his gaze and a sliver of worry flashed across his eyes. He had seen the conversation between Big Uncle and the King of Song clearly. From the looks of it, the both of them were determined to stop the consort Tai Zhen. To Wang Chong, this wasn't a good thing. Young friend, so you're here. Suddenly, a voice sounded in his ears. Shocked, Wang Chong turned around and saw a scholar dressed in a loose robe walking toward him with a smile. Lord Lu. Recovering from his shock, Wang Chong bowed. The person who came was none other than academic Lu Ting, whom Wang Chong met once in the vast crane pavilion. He, when will Chong Gongzi be returning? Lu Ting smiled. After dinner. Wang Chong was taken aback for a moment before replying. It was rare for the Wang clan to gather together. Only on grandfather's birthday would there be such an opportunity. This was a routine gathering of the Wang clan. In his previous life, he was a loner. Thus, in this life, Wang Chong cherished this opportunity. That's good. On behalf of the King of Song, I would like to invite Gongzi for a meeting. Lu Ting revealed the purpose of his visit. Lu Ting had a good impression of this descendant of the Wang clan. In truth, he was the one who facilitated the meeting between the King of Song and Wang Chong. Oh. Wang Chong was taken aback for a moment before nodding his head, all right. It just so happens that I would like to meet the King of Song. Ah. Lu Ting lifted his head and stared at Wang Chong in surprise. This time, it was his turn to be surprised. As the time grew late, the crowd gradually dispersed. Elder Yi, Duke of Hu, Elder Zhao, Elder Sun, Elder Ma, and the others also left the Four Quarters Embassy with their grandchildren. Soon, the entire Four Quarters Embassy fell silent. Wang Chong waited outside for an hour before he finally saw the King of Song walking out. However, his complexion wasn't too good. It seems like the King of Song didn't get what he wanted. Wang Chong shook his head. In his previous life, he didn't have a deep understanding of the matter regarding consort Tai Zhen. As such, there were many details that he wasn't clear about. Regarding the matter regarding consort Tai Zhen, his grandfather's attitude was extremely vague. The Song clan and Wang clan had several generations of friendship. On many important matters, his grandfather had supported the King of Song, and the King of Song had supported the Wang clan. The two of them shared similar views on many important matters in the royal court. In fact, it was due to this relationship that Big Uncle and the King of Song even formed an alliance in the royal court. Most of the time, before a royal court meeting, they would discuss and exchange opinions. On the matter regarding consort Tai Zhen, Wang Chong thought that his grandfather would support the King of Song. However, that wasn't the case. His grandfather didn't support consort Tai Zhen, but he didn't oppose it either. On this matter, his grandfather chose to remain silent. His grandfather had spent most of his life in the midst of storms, and he had experienced many important matters. When it came to the sage emperor, grandfather had always been straightforward with him, rarely avoiding the taboo. However, on the matter of consort Tai Zhen, his grandfather chose to remain silent. This was an extremely rare sight. Even after several decades, Wang Chong still couldn't understand it. In the end, Wang Chong could only understand that since Big Uncle had already expressed his stance, it wasn't appropriate for his grandfather to do so. However, Wang Chong felt that there was more to this matter than meets the eye. From afar, Lu Ting walked over and whispered a few words into the King of Song's ears. The King of Song's face was originally gloomy, but at this moment, he forcefully lifted his spirits and his complexion became much better. Wang Chong met with the King of Song near a fake mountain and a bamboo forest. The surroundings were silent, and only a few Imperial Army members were patrolling the area. Upon seeing Wang Chong, the King of Song's mood seemed to improve, and a smile appeared on his face. "Your big uncle told me about it. Truly, heroes come from the young." The King of Song wasn't stingy with his compliments. He had heard about the entire matter regarding Yao Guangyi from Wang General. If not for the fact that it came from Wang Zhen's mouth, he wouldn't have believed it. The King of Song found it hard to believe that someone as scheming as Yao Guangyi would lose to a 15-year-old child. "I've already issued a gag order on that matter. Everyone who knows about it is forbidden from spreading it. I wonder if anyone knows that you were the one who stopped Yao Guangyi," the King of Song said. The King of Song had a deep impression of Wang Chong. To be able to defeat a formidable opponent like Yao Guangyi at such a young age, it was truly inconceivable. This was also the reason why the King of Song wanted to meet Wang Chong on his birthday. "Thank you, Your Highness." Wang Chong bowed. Given the many years of friendship between the Song and Wang clan, the King of Song would subconsciously side with the Wang clan on this matter. This was also the reason why the Wang clan submitted to the King of Song. Speak. What reward do you want?" "As long as it's within my means, I'll give it to you," the King of Song said generously. "Your Highness has already given me a reward." Wang Chong rejected. That's a different matter. That time, it was the King of Song who bestowed it to you. This time, it's a gift from an elder, so I can't reject it." Chapter 109. The Song clan and the Wang clan didn't just have a simple political alliance. There were also many other emotional factors involved. The King of Song and Duke Jiao were of the same generation. Back then, the two of them were very good brothers. In that turbulent era, the two of them fought side by side and supported the current Holy Emperor to reach his current position. Because of this, it could be said that Duke Jiao had watched the King of Song grow up. When the King of Song was still around, Duke Jiao had also visited the King of Song's residence, visited him, and hugged him. Putting aside political reasons, deep in his heart, the King of Song still saw Duke Jiao as a father figure, a kind elder. Therefore, even though Duke Jiao didn't express his support for him this time, which made him a little disappointed, the King of Song didn't fly into a rage. The King of Song didn't have much of an impression of Wang Chong. But when he thought about it carefully, he did have some vague impressions. When he was young, he probably hugged him and coaxed him. It was only after he became the King of Song that he became busier and busier that he no longer had the time to pay attention to these juniors. Now that the matters of the imperial court had come to an end, looking at Wang Chong before him brought back memories in the King of Song's heart, as well as some of his feelings as an elder. Wang Chong didn't know what the King of Song was thinking, but Wang Chong could feel that the King of Song was at his most amiable, easygoing, and relaxed. It was as if he was speaking to him as an elder. "Your Highness, I dare not bestow it to you. If it's possible, can this junior ask for someone?" Wang Chong lowered his head and bowed. "Someone?" The King of Song and Lu Ting looked at each other. Both of them were very curious. In particular, the King of Song, who had been troubled by the matter of consort Taizhen, suddenly became interested when he heard Wang Chong's words. He temporarily forgot about the troubles in the court. Alone. Women. You must have taken a fancy to that girl. This is human nature. Tell me, no matter who it is, I will personally speak to them for you." The King of Song laughed and seemed to be in a much better mood. Who had never been young? Hearing Wang Chong's words, the King of Song thought that Wang Chong liked a girl from a certain family, which evoked many memories in him. That's right. Chong Gongzi, feel free to speak. Even if it's the princess, with His Highness the King of Song's help, it's not impossible. Lu Ting stroked his beard and teased. No. Your Highness has misunderstood. Wang Chong felt awkward. That wasn't the case at all. What in the world were these two thinking? I wish to save someone, but only Your Highness is capable of doing so. I hope that Your Highness can save him. Oh. The King of Song looked at Wang Chong. Seeing that the latter didn't seem to be joking, he frowned and retracted his smile. Then, he said solemnly, who do you wish to save? Let me tell you first, a country has its laws, a clan has its rules, and the royal court has its laws. Even though I'm a king of the royal family, I can't do as I please. I understand. This person is called Zhang Munian. The crime he committed isn't too grave. This is his dossier, Your Highness can take a look. With a lowered head, Wang Chong took out the handwritten dossier he had prepared beforehand and passed it over. The King of Song, Wang Chong, had to meet him no matter what. It wasn't just for the matter of consort Tai Zhen. To Wang Chong, there was someone more important than consort Tai Zhen. That person was Zhang Munian. Ever since his reincarnation, Wang Chong had pondered over the matter for countless days and nights. To change the fate of the empire, there was a person he couldn't do without, Zhang Munian. Zhang Munian? The King of Song frowned, seemingly racking his brains. But eventually, the King of Song realized that he couldn't recall such a person. Academic Lu, do you have any impression of him? The King of Song shot him a glance. Lu Ting shook his head. He had never heard of this name before. That's strange. The King of Song was taken aback. He took the dossier from Wang Chong's hands, flipped it open, and began reading through it. So, he's an agriculture official. How did he embezzle so much? 20,000 gold taels. The King of Song read through the information on the dossier and frowned. But on the inside, the King of Song heaved a sigh of relief. What he was worried about the most was that Wang Chong wanted to save those who committed murder, rape, betrayed the country, and committed all kinds of heinous crimes. As for embezzlement, it was still a huge crime according to the laws of the empire. But in King Song's eyes, it was only related to money, and it wasn't that big of a deal. At the very least, it wasn't an unpardonable crime. Your Highness, it's true that he embezzled 20,000 gold taels. But I guarantee that there's more to this matter. He definitely didn't embezzle the money for his personal gain. Wang Chong said earnestly. Oh. The eyebrows of the King of Song shot up, but he didn't pursue the matter any further. He didn't pay too much attention to such trifling matters. If you can repay the 20,000 gold taels first, I might be able to get the Bureau of Punishments to redeem it. I can help you repay the 20,000 gold taels. Wang Chong was overjoyed. Before the King of Song could finish his words, he immediately interrupted. 20,000 gold taels was a huge figure according to the laws of the empire. But for the current Wang Chong, it was really nothing. Let me finish. I can ask the Bureau of Punishments to reconsider this matter. As long as you repay the 20,000 gold taels he embezzled, this matter can be easily solved. But if you want me to promise you, you have to answer a question of mine. Ah! Wang Chong raised his head. This was beyond his expectation. Don't worry. I won't make things too difficult for you. Just tell me why you want to save him. Is this person your friend? The King of Song said with a smile. After confirming that the person Wang Chong wanted him to save was not a heinous criminal, the King of Song was quite open and even joked with him. Actually, I don't know him. Wang Chong hesitated for a moment before deciding to speak the truth. But I can tell Your Highness that this person will be of great use to the Tang dynasty in the future. Oh. Upon hearing those words, the King of Song and Lu Ting glanced at one another, and they could see a hint of doubt in each other's eyes. No one understood the meaning behind Wang Chong's words. The two of them couldn't understand why Wang Chong viewed Zhang Munian in such high regard. However, after the incident with Yao Guangyi, no one dared to treat him as a 15-year-old child anymore. I don't know what you intend to do. However, as long as he isn't a heinous criminal, as long as he doesn't go against the laws of the empire, and as long as he doesn't harm the empire, I can promise you anything. I can promise you anything. Wait for my news when you return. I will resolve this matter. The King of Song said. His last few words weren't just directed at Zhang Munian's matter. It could be considered as a warning from the King of Song to this intelligent junior, Wang Chong. Intelligence can be used for righteousness, but when used for evil, it can be used for evil. The Wang clan was a clan of ministers and generals, and this would be of utmost importance in the future. Your Highness, thank you for your teachings. Wang Chong could tell that the King of Song was making use of this opportunity to teach him a lesson, so he bowed in gratitude. All right, it's about time. Academic Lu, let's return. The King of Song said to Lu Ting as he prepared to return home. For some reason, he suddenly felt exhausted after coming to the Four Quarters Embassy. Your Highness, let's go. Lu Ting smiled as he gestured for them to follow. Wait a moment. Seeing that the duo was about to leave, Wang Chong blurted out. HM. The duo turned around and looked at Wang Chong in astonishment. Wang Chong, is there anything else? The King of Song smiled, displaying the benevolence of an elder. Toward a junior like Wang Chong, he was extremely lenient. Wang Chong hesitated. Even though he had already made up his mind to persuade the King of Song on the matter of consort Taizhen, Wang Chong still found it a little difficult to speak of it. He didn't know where he should start. The matter of consort Taizhen wasn't a big deal, but it involved the duties and principles of an official. The King of Song had just lectured him that he had to use his intelligence in the right place. If he were to bring up the matter of consort Taizhen to persuade the King of Song to change his stance, the King of Song and Big Uncle wouldn't know how they would view him. Not only would the good impression he had painstakingly built up vanish into thin air, King Song and his Big Uncle would even mistake him for a crafty scoundrel. At such a young age, he had already gone astray and lost his principles. This matter wasn't something that he could bring up easily. Wang Chong felt that this matter was even more difficult to resolve than the regional commander's system. What's wrong? While Wang Chong was feeling anxious, he didn't know how he should speak. On the other side, the King of Song and Lu Ting saw that Wang Chong wasn't speaking, and they became even more curious, urging him to speak. Indeed, Chong Gongzi, is there anything that you can't say in front of the King of Song? Lu Ting said with a smile. The impression that this lad gave him was that he was extremely daring, and the matter with Yao Guangyi left a deep impression on him. For some reason, he was cowering in fear at this moment, not daring to speak a word. This wasn't the Wang clan's Qilin son in his impression. May I be so bold as to say that? Your Highness is vexed over the matter of consort Taizhen. Wang Chong struggled internally for a long time. Gritting his teeth, he finally decided to speak his mind. Wang. The moment the words left Wang Chong's mouth, the atmosphere in the vicinity of the fake mountain and bamboo forest changed abruptly. In an instant it was as though a raging gale had swept across the area, causing the sky to darken. Wang Chong heard a flapping sound. Lowering his head, he saw the King of Song's robe flapping intensely. What are you trying to say? The King of Song asked sternly. Initially, his face was filled with warmth, as though he was a benevolent elder. However, at this moment, his expression changed drastically, and his face turned livid. Even though Lu Ting had always had a good impression of Wang Chong, at this moment, his face warped and he fell silent. In the air, an invisible pressure seemed to be expanding, and all of the pressure was aimed at Wang Chong. Your Highness, you've misunderstood, Wang Chong quickly explained. The King of Song had clearly misunderstood something. Wang Chong, as an elder, I'm warning you today that it is the duty of a subject to uphold ethics. Principles are more important than anything else. If an emperor were to do something wrong, even if the emperor were to reprimand him, demote him, or even exile him, as a subject, I have to remonstrate him. This is because this is more important than my life. His Majesty is wise and valiant. He is the wisest emperor in the history of our Tang dynasty. Under his leadership, our Tang dynasty has actively expanded. Now, from Jiaoji in the south, to Yin Mountain in the north, to the East Sea in the east, and to the Pamir Mountains in the west, all belong to our Tang dynasty. The land area is unprecedentedly vast, and this is an unprecedented flourishing era in the history of the Central Plains. No other emperor can compare to it. Be it Emperor Qin or Emperor Wu of Han, they are all the same. Our Tang dynasty is the most prosperous of all dynasties in terms of both political and martial arts. His Majesty is a true emperor throughout the ages. Right now, he is muddle-headed, indulging in women without realizing it. This has affected the entire court of the Tang dynasty. His Majesty doesn't know it, but as subjects, we have to remonstrate him. No matter what, we cannot allow any stain to appear on His Majesty's reputation as an emperor throughout the ages. Chapter 110. These words were the King of Song's admonition to Wang Chong. At the same time, they were also the King of Song's heartfelt words. It wasn't easy for the Tang dynasty to reach its current height, and it wasn't easy for the Central Plains to reach its current height. It took several thousand years for such a great emperor to appear in the Central Plains. As for the current holy emperor, the King of Song respected him from the bottom of his heart. This was precisely the reason why he couldn't tolerate any blemish on the holy emperor's name. For a ruler to take the wife of a subject, this was against the moral principles. For a father to take the wife of his son, this was against the moral principles. It would be a huge stain on any monarch's reputation if they did something that went against the rules and ethics. The current holy emperor was a man of bold vision and wisdom. It wasn't easy for the Tang dynasty to reach its current height. Thus, the King of Song couldn't allow such a thing to happen to the current holy emperor. If anyone dared to oppose him, if anyone dared to support this matter, they would be his enemy. If Wang Chong dared to dissuade or oppose him on this matter, then the King of Song would truly have misjudged him. For such a person, the more capable and talented he was, the greater the harm he would bring to the royal court. If Wang Chong really wanted to dissuade him, then as long as he was still in the royal court, he would never allow Wang Chong to stand out in the royal court. Even if Wang Chong was the descendant of Duke Jiu, the son of Wang Gung. Who? The bamboo forest around the fake mountain rustled, but the atmosphere was extremely heavy. Even Lu Ting was silent by the side, his expression extremely solemn. Wang Chong sighed deeply in his heart. He knew that no matter what he said at this moment, as long as he opened his mouth, it would be wrong. However, he couldn't ignore the consort Tai Jin incident. The impact of this matter was too great. This was not only because the King of Song was the Wang family's backer, but also because big uncle Wang Zhen would be implicated in this matter. More importantly, Wang Chong understood that if he wanted to fulfill his mission and change the fate of the Central Plains and the Tang dynasty, the King of Song was an indispensable part of it. As the saying goes, nothing is perfect, and no one is perfect. The King of Song might have some shortcomings, but he was the most proactive person in the imperial court and the strongest supporter of the military. Regardless of whether it was King Qi or the Yao clan, neither of them possessed such foresight. Their vision was too limited, and they would only stare at the inside. The Yao family was good at scheming, and they were best at fighting among themselves. What King Qi wanted was power. If the King of Song were to fall, they would be in charge of the overall situation. For the Tang dynasty, it would definitely be a disaster rather than a blessing. In the future catastrophe, the imperial court needed someone like the King of Song, the Tang dynasty needed someone like the King of Song, the Central Plains needed someone like the King of Song, and so did Wang Chong. Only with a powerful warmonger like the King of Song supporting him in the imperial court would he be able to carry out his plans without any worries. Therefore, no matter what, the King of Song couldn't fall. Be it for official or personal reasons, for the Tang dynasty or for the Wang family, Wang Chong couldn't allow him to fall. Your Highness, Wang Chong lowered his head and spoke, finding it abnormally difficult to say these two words. Wang Chong doesn't mean to support or oppose your Highness. However, regarding the matter of consort Taizhen, why don't your Highness ask Prince Shou? Whine. Silence. Unparalleled silence. Upon hearing the name, Prince Shou, both the King of Song and Lu Ting revealed astonished expressions. Prince Shou. Prince Shou. The two had thought of everything, but never in their wildest dreams did they expect Wang Chong to mention Prince Shou. Without a doubt, King Shou was the person at the center of the consort Taizhen storm. However, regardless of whether it was King Song, Lu Ting, King Qi, the Yao clan, or the officials of the royal court, the only person that no one had expected was King Shou! A father takes his son's wife, and a lord takes his subject's wife. In this matter, the most awkward and hurt one was undoubtedly Prince Shou, Li Mao. If the emperor wants the subject to die, the subject has no choice but to die. If the emperor's father wants to take his son's wife, what can this son do? Prince Shou had already been hurt once, and no one wanted him to be hurt a second time. Therefore, be it the King of Song, King Qi, or the officials in the imperial court, no one wanted to visit Prince Shou and ask for his opinion on this matter. The entire imperial court is involved in the matter of consort Taizhen. Wang Chong isn't trying to express anything, but why didn't your Highness ask Prince Shou first before making a decision? Wang Chong said with his head lowered. Wang Chong felt that there were too many questions regarding this matter back then. Why would a wise and astute emperor who spent the first half of his life suddenly become so lustful toward women, to the point of disregarding half of the officials in the imperial court and demoting a prince of the imperial family and many important officials in the imperial court? If this person was a fatuous emperor, then so be it. However, he was publicly acknowledged as a wise emperor. However, in the matter of consort Taizhen, his actions were definitely not that of a wise emperor. Just like what the King of Song had said in his previous life, this was a huge stain on his reputation. The disparity between before and after was too great, and they didn't seem like the same person at all. Not only so, consort Taizhen was known as the #1 beauty of the Tang dynasty. She had a face that could captivate even the birds and beasts, as well as a beauty that outshone the moon. Regardless of which time-space she was in, she was publicly acknowledged as a beauty throughout the ages. Wang Chong had never met consort Taizhen before, so he didn't know what she looked like. However, Wang Chong had met Prince Shou, Li Mao. In his previous life, Wang Chong was a famous hedonistic son of a wealthy family in the capital. He was idle, ignorant, and incompetent. After the incident of consort Taizhen, Wang Chong had once accidentally met Prince Shou, Li Mao. At that time, Prince Shou's face was glowing, and he was full of smiles. No matter how he looked at it, he didn't look like someone who had just lost his true love and had his wife snatched away by his father. Even though it was only for an instant, Prince Shou sensed something and immediately dashed into the courtyard, never to appear again. However, that glimpse left a deep impression on Wang Chong. This was the first time that Wang Chong had met Prince Shou, and it was also the only time in his life. Now that Wang Chong had reincarnated and the incident of consort Taizhen happened once again, Wang Chong subconsciously recalled that encounter. He recalled the glowing and smiling Prince Shou. Wang Chong had a feeling that the matter of consort Taizhen wasn't as simple as it seemed on the surface. Is this what you want to say? The King of Song stared at Wang Chong said, and a glint flickered in his eyes. It was impossible to tell what he was thinking. Yes. Wang Chong clenched his teeth and said solemnly. He had wanted to say more and, if possible, persuade the King of Song to change his mind. However, Wang Chong knew that going too far was as bad as falling short. Given his current relationship with the King of Song, this was the most he could say. I understand. The King of Song's expression became much better, and he wasn't as stern as before. It's hard to explain the matters of the royal court in a few words. It's good that you are concerned about the matters of the royal court. However, there are many things that you will only understand after you grow up. After saying this, the King of Song left with Lu Ting. A moment later, the carriage started moving. Amidst the rumbling sounds, the carriage quickly left the Four Quarters Embassy and headed east. Sigh. Looking at the departing figure of the carriage, Wang Chong sighed deeply in his heart. Wang Chong knew that his words were in vain this time. The King of Song didn't listen to him. However, Wang Chong wasn't surprised by this outcome. At this moment, given the King of Song's state of mind, if he could really listen to the opinions of a teenager like him, he wouldn't be the King of Song. In fact, the King of Song's reaction was already beyond his expectations for the King of Song to say those words after hearing his words. But even so, Wang Chong didn't feel discouraged. Even though the King of Song didn't listen to his words, Wang Chong knew that when that matter happened in the near future, the King of Song probably wouldn't think so anymore. No matter what, I've already done all that I can. The rest is up to the will of the heavens. Wang Chong thought. Wang Chong wasn't worried about his big uncle, and he didn't intend to persuade him either. His big uncle and the King of Song had formed an alliance. If he could persuade the King of Song, he would surely be able to persuade his big uncle too. On the other hand, if he couldn't persuade the King of Song, with the King of Song taking the lead, it would be impossible to persuade his big uncle. Because that would be equivalent to asking his big uncle to betray the King of Song. Moreover, Wang Chong knew that if his big uncle really changed his mind, it might not be a good thing. Turning around, Wang Chong strode in the direction of the erudite pavilion. Your Highness, should we pay a visit to King Shou? At the same time, unknown to Wang Chong, another conversation was going on in the King of Song's carriage. You are thinking of, in the carriage, the King of Song raised an eyebrow and looked at Lu Ting in surprise. Even though Wang Chong had done some shocking things that didn't match his age, he was still a 15-year-old child. The King of Song didn't expect Lu Ting to actually listen to Wang Chong's words. That child's words aren't unreasonable. Besides, we won't lose anything by meeting King Shou. Lu Ting said. Even though Lu Ting didn't think that they should give in on the matter of consort Taizhen, that child didn't seem to be speaking without thinking either. The King of Song was silent, seemingly considering the feasibility of Lu Ting's words. Forget it. The King of Song pondered for a moment, but still shook his head. The matter of consort Taizhen is also something that King Shou can't mention. He has already been hurt once in this matter. If we do this again, it will be equivalent to opening his scars and sprinkling salt on them. Moreover, ever since this matter happened, King Shou has been in seclusion. Even if he wants to meet him, it won't be easy. It's better not to trouble him with this matter. The King of Song rejected Lu Ting's suggestion. Lu Ting sighed inwardly, knowing that the King of Song was still unwilling to touch King Shou's scars. It was true that King Shou was in seclusion and refused visitors, but with the identity of the King of Song's imperial uncle, if he insisted on meeting King Shou, how could he not meet him? The King of Song just didn't want to meet him. Let's abide by your Highness's decree. Chapter 111. With the departure of the King of Song, the officials, and the old subordinates of the old master, the Four Quarters Embassy finally quietened down. But by this time, the sky had already darkened. In previous birthdays, the family would have already started eating before anyone arrived. But this time, because there were too many people, it only ended at 5. Brat, I'll forget about it this time. It's already too late. Remember to hurry over when second sister calls for you. Before leaving, second sister entered the carriage and raised her fist threateningly. I understand. Do you think that I would dare to disobey second sister's orders? Wang Chong smiled. Only then did Wang Zhuyan drop the matter. Just like how they came, the family boarded their own carriages and left in the direction they came from. Parting the curtains, Wang Chong took a final glance at the Four Quarters Embassy behind him. Under the night sky, the Four Quarters Embassy was shrouded in darkness, and only a few flickering lights could be seen. Wang Chong was well aware that a storm would soon sweep through the entire imperial court. Regardless of whether it was the regional commander's system or the consort Taishan incident, the storm they stirred was sufficient to destabilize the royal court of the Tang dynasty for a very long period of time. However, to Wang Chong, all of this had nothing to do with him. He had already done all he could. What happened next wasn't something a child like him could resolve. It's about time for me to return and settle my matters, Wang Chong thought. Looking at the Four Quarters Embassy in the darkness behind him, he felt a tinge of regret. The Holy Emperor would definitely appear for grandfather's birthday. However, it was a pity that Wang Chong never had the chance to meet him. Even though the current Sage Emperor usually appeared in the day, he would only appear in the Four Quarters Embassy on the day of his grandfather's birthday. Only at night would the Sage Emperor appear in the Four Quarters Embassy after the officials had left. Thus, after so many years, Wang Chong had never met the Holy Emperor. This was one of his regrets. Let's go, child. His mother's voice sounded by his side. Wang Chong was dazed for a moment before he recovered. Go. A whip cracked outside the carriage, and it slowly headed towards the Wang family. The east side of the Four Quarters Embassy was separated by a tall wall. While the erudite pavilion was bustling with activity, the west side of the courtyard wall was deathly silent. There wasn't even a bit of light. The people of the Wang clan have all left. In the darkness, an old voice suddenly came, as if he had been listening to something. Yes, father, it's all gone. A middle-aged man's voice came from the darkness. It sounded very respectful. Chi. The sound of flint came from the darkness. Then, a faint flame lit up, and an ordinary oil lamp lit up in the room. The grease gradually outlined the face of a middle-aged man. This was a dignified face. With a single glance, one could tell that he held a high position and possessed extraordinary status. However, his eyes were filled with deep doubt, as if he was deeply troubled by something. If Wang Chong was here, he would definitely be shocked. Because this person was none other than the nemesis of the Wang clan, the one who schemed against Wang Chong's father, Yao Guangyi. In the battle by the borders, Yao Guangyi's cleverness had backfired, and he became the laughingstock of the entire capital. From then on, Yao Guangyi lived in seclusion, reflecting on his mistakes. However, on Duke Jiu's birthday, Yao Guangyi didn't stay in the Yao residence. Instead, he stayed in the room beside the Wang clan old master's erudite pavilion. For such a person to appear in the Four Quarters Embassy without the Wang clan knowing about it, this was a huge mistake. If the Wang clan knew that Yao Guangyi had been listening to them for an entire day, they would probably be shocked. Father, if I were to listen here for an entire day, I would know who in the Wang clan schemed against me. Forgive me for my foolishness, but I beseech Lord Father to enlighten me. Yao Guangyi lowered his head respectfully, as though he was seeking guidance from his father. The battle by the borders had always been a huge knot in his heart. To think that he had always prided himself on his intelligence, yet he had lost to the Wang clan in his forte. Without a doubt, this was a huge blow to him. It would have been fine if that was all. However, Yao Guangyi didn't even know how he lost or who he lost to. This was something that the prideful Yao Guangyi couldn't accept. If he didn't resolve this problem, Yao Guangyi would never be able to pull himself together. Pooh! There was no response from the room. The light from the oil lamp vaguely reflected the image of a white-skinned elder. This elder's hair and beard were all white, and his face was covered in wrinkles. Upon hearing Yao Guangyi's words, he only smiled faintly. Holding a thin stick, he lightly fiddled with the wick of the oil lamp. If one didn't know better, it would be hard to believe that this ordinary-looking elder fiddling with the wick of the oil lamp was another influential figure in the Tang dynasty, Hao Chong, Yao Yuanji, the Yao clan's old master Yao. Unlike the Wang clan's old master Wang Jiuling, Yao Chong had never led an army beyond the Great Wall and participated in any earth-shattering battles. Similarly, he had never been embroiled in any turmoil in the royal court, nor had he performed any heroic feats. Naturally, he didn't have any contributions to the throne. However, it was precisely this Yao Chong, Yao Yuanji, who had become an influential figure in the Tang dynasty, standing on equal footing with the Wang clan's old master Wang. In the royal court, his standing was extraordinary, and he was favored by the Holy Emperor. On top of that, he occupied a seat in the most illustrious and unique four-quarters embassy of the Tang dynasty. The Yao clan's old master Yao didn't rely on martial prowess to reach his current position. "Did you hear the birthday greetings in the morning?" Old Master Yao asked with a smile, bringing up an unimportant matter. "I did." Yao Guangyi was taken aback, but he quickly replied. He knew that his father wouldn't speak of unimportant matters. "How did it feel?" Old Master Yao smiled. Retracting the needle that was fiddling with the wick of the oil lamp, he lightly blew on it, just like an ordinary old man. "Lively, illustrious, and prosperous. If it's father's birthday, it won't pale in comparison," Yao Guangyi added. Old Master Yao narrowed his eyes and waved his hands with a smile. At his level of standing, he didn't need to listen to flattery anymore. "What about now?" Old Master Yao narrowed his eyes and asked once more. As he spoke, he placed the needle back into the box on the table and placed it neatly. Taking a closer look, one could see that there was more than one needle in the box. Every single needle had a black tip, and they were neatly stacked in the wooden box. Now. Quiet, serene, and cold. Yao Guangyi hesitated for a moment before replying. He still didn't understand what his father was trying to say. Guangyi, you better remember this. Life is like day and night. Just a moment ago, you might be famous and honorable, but in the next moment, you might end up like you are now, declining from the peak of your power, with no one showing any interest in you. This is the true portrayal of our clan of generals and ministers. Old Master Yao said. At the end of his words, he stared at Yao Guangyi with an indescribable gaze. Whine. Yao Guangyi was shocked. He didn't expect that the old master wanted him to listen to the Wang clan's day and night just to tell him this. In that instant, Yao Guangyi felt as though he had returned to his younger days, listening respectfully to the old master's teachings. Guangyi, do you know why you lost to the Wang clan by the borders? Do you still think that it was a coincidence? You are too conceited. It isn't easy for a clan to rise to its current position, and it takes several generations to achieve. But to destroy it, it only takes a day. It's precisely because I understand that life is fickle and that it is easy to gain and easy to lose. Thus, I have always been cautious and cautious, not daring to be careless. Child, this is the last lesson I want to teach you. Be careful. Old Master Yao said faintly. His eyes stared at Yao Guangyi, as though looking into the depths of the latter's soul. Shua. Yao Guangyi was taken aback and cold sweat dripped down his back. In that instant, he suddenly felt his father's state of mind. Father, I have learned my lesson. Yao Guangyi stood up and bowed respectfully. It wasn't easy for a clan to rise up. Knowing this, one had to be even more cautious. After being under his father's protection for so long, Yao Guangyi had already forgotten the feeling of being covered in thin ice. He had also forgotten that the reason why he could make a mistake without being punished was because of the old master's existence. It was precisely because of the old master's protection that he was able to sit in his current position. For so many years, he had always thought that he was the head of the Yao clan. But in reality, the true head of the Yao clan had always been his father. Looking at Yao Guangyi's cold sweat dripping down his back, old Master Yao finally nodded his head. It was a true awakening for him to understand the feeling of being covered in thin ice. There was no such thing as a perfect plan in the world. The reason why he was able to remain standing for so many years was because of the words covered in thin ice. The fact that you can understand this means that you can still be saved. As for the identity of the Wang clan that you wish to know, you will find out soon. As though responding to old Master Yao's words, a series of footsteps sounded from outside. A moment later, a fully armored commander of the Imperial Army walked in from outside. Paying respects to Duke Yao. The Imperial Army commander was travel-worn. Upon entering the room, he immediately kneeled down without raising his head. Upon seeing the Imperial Army commander before him, Yao Guangyi was astonished. The Imperial Army members in the Four Quarters Embassy were hand-picked by the Holy Emperor, and every single one of them was loyal and reliable. Yet, the old master was still able to plant a spy among them. Old Master Yao smiled but didn't reply. He only looked at the Imperial Army commander on the ground. Today is Duke Jiu's birthday banquet. Tell me everything you saw. Yes. With his head lowered, the Imperial Army commander swiftly recounted what he saw in the day. All right. Old Master Yao waved his hands, and the latter quickly rushed over. Even Yao Guangyi wasn't able to see his face clearly. The other party seemed to be intentionally concealing his face. Other than old Master Yao, even Yao Guangyi wasn't willing to let him see his face. Did you hear anything? Old Master Yao turned to look at Yao Guangyi. Pardon my foolishness, but I really can't hear anything. Yao Guangyi lifted his head with a confused expression. He listened carefully. What the Imperial Army commander said were all extremely trivial matters, such as who came to the Four Quarters Embassy, what gifts they brought, who the Wang clan old master met, when did someone leave, who seemed intimate with someone. It was all superficial information. As for the specifics, there was nothing at all. Honestly speaking, to Yao Guangyi, this was completely useless information. Do you still not understand? That's right. Even I didn't expect that the person who schemed against you would be a 15-year-old child. Yao Guangyi shook his head. There was an indescribable emotion in his eyes. What? A child? Yao Guangyi widened his eyes in disbelief as he stared at his father. Tell me, who was the last person the king of Song, Li Qingqi, met? Wang Gingji's third son, Wang Chong. That's him. This child is the one you're looking for. Old Master Yao said slowly. His eyes seemed to be able to see through everything. Boom! As though a bolt of lightning flashing across his mind, Yao Guangyi widened his eyes in shock. Chapter 112. Even a magnitude 12 tsunami couldn't describe the shock in Yao Guangyi's heart. Being schemed against by the boarders was no different from a clown. Yao Guangyi had always thought that the Wang clan had received the help of an expert who saw through his plans. Because of this expert, Yao Guangyi couldn't eat or sleep in peace. One shouldn't be afraid of meeting a formidable opponent, but of not knowing who his opponent was. Thus, before finding this person, Yao Guangyi couldn't pull himself together. This was a knot in his heart. If he didn't resolve this problem, he would never be able to return to his previous self. Just that, no matter how smart Yao Guangyi was, he couldn't have imagined that his opponent, the incomparably formidable expert in his heart, was a teenage child of the Wang clan, an unassuming profligate scion. How could an influential official of the royal court, Yao Guangyi, who prided himself on his intelligence, accept this? Father, how can you be so sure that the child is the one who schemed against me? Yao Guangyi asked. Under normal circumstances, he wouldn't dare to doubt his father's words. However, this matter was simply too important to him. If he didn't resolve this knot in his heart, he would always be brooding over it. Heh, you still don't get it. Old Master Yao kept the wooden box on the table into his drawer. His expression was calm, as though he was talking about an insignificant matter that he already knew the answer to. Such a huge incident happened at the borders with the Wang clan, and the Wang clan produced a formidable expert. Do you think that the king of Song can sit still? Isn't he going to take a look? But, what if he already knew about it? Yao Guangyi asked. Old Master Yao shook his head. If it was the Yao Guangyi of the past, he would have already understood the situation upon hearing his words. However, the incident at the borders had dealt a blow to his confidence, and he no longer seemed like the wise general he used to be. Think about it carefully. If the Wang clan really has a powerful expert, if the king of Song really knew about it beforehand, do you think that your plan with King Qi would succeed? Do you think that you can still rope in so many people? Hong. Old Master Yao's voice was neither loud nor soft, and he spoke in a light and breezy manner. But in Yao Guangyi's ears, it was as if he had been enlightened. In that instant it was as if there were countless rays of light and countless thoughts flashed through his mind. In the unseen world, many things that he couldn't understand before suddenly seemed to be made clear. So, the last person to see the King of Song during Duke Jiu's birthday banquet is the person we are looking for. Old Master Yao nodded his head in relief. Old Master Yao nodded his head in relief. Li Qingqi can be considered an intelligent person. Unfortunately, his cleverness is his own downfall. He wanted to protect that child, but he didn't know that he was the one who let us know who was behind this. Yao Guangyi sat there in a daze, not moving an inch. His eyes were cloudy, filled with confusion, fear, and confusion. But slowly, like a person who had fallen into a whirlpool, he slowly struggled to the surface, and his eyes slowly became clear. Moreover, there was something new struggling out from the bottom of his heart. The confused Yao Guangyi slowly disappeared and a confident and dignified Yao Guangyi slowly appeared in the room. I didn't expect it, I really didn't expect it. Back at the vast crane pavilion, I thought that it was just a coincidence. I didn't expect that it's actually him. Yao Guangyi said, I can't believe it a few times in succession. This matter really gave him too big of a surprise. Father, the Wang clan has never been known for its intelligence. Now that the Wang clan has produced this brat, he even schemed against me. This is definitely not a good thing. So, are you going to get rid of him? Old Master Yao turned around and said unhurriedly. Yao Guangyi was stunned. According to him, such a threatening existence had to be eliminated. Moreover, the sooner, the better. However, from what the old man said, it seemed like he didn't agree with him doing this. Father, you mean to keep him alive for now? Yao Guangyi was truly surprised. It's not a matter of staying or not. Old Master Yao stared deeply at Yao Guangyi. There seemed to be something else in his eyes. If you want to kill that child, even if the Wang clan seeks vengeance, even if Wang Bo pursues the matter, even if the Holy Emperor blames you, I can bear all of it for you. However, are you sure that you want to do this? The room was silent. Only the crackling of the oil lamp could be heard. Yao Guangyi sat there in a daze and fell into deep thought. Old Master Yao shook his head. The onlooker sees the situation clearly. This child still hadn't recovered from that defeat. Guangyi. Do you think that the reason why our Yao clan is where it is today is through massacring our opponents? If we massacred every single one of them, what difference is there between us and those general clans? Old Master Yao said casually. Wine. Hearing these words, Yao Guangyi's body trembled. Not knowing what he was thinking, a layer of cold sweat appeared on his forehead. You still don't understand. The crux of this matter isn't that child but you. Do you know why you want to kill him? Because you are fearful. Old Master Yao narrowed his eyes. However, his gaze wasn't on Yao Guangyi. Instead, it was on the flickering oil lamp. Our Yao clan has been through many trials and tribulations, and there are many people more formidable than that child. Is Zhou Chang weaker than him? Is Li Yu weaker than him? Is Wang Gingji weaker than him? Out of so many people, we didn't kill any of them. But when we met this child, you wanted to kill him because you are afraid. Fearful. And your opponent is just a child. Yao Guangyi's forehead was drenched in cold sweat. With every sentence that old Master Yao spoke, a layer of cold sweat would appear on his forehead. When he heard the last sentence, Yao Guangyi's clothes were already drenched. Meeting an opponent isn't scary. Our Yao clan has never been afraid of meeting an opponent. If we really meet him, we just have to use schemes to defeat him. What we are afraid of is that you will lose the courage to use schemes to defeat him. Guangyi, think carefully. Do you really want to get rid of that child? The room was silent. A long while later, a long sigh could be heard. Father, I was wrong. It's not too late for you to understand. That child of the Wang clan must be gotten rid of, but not in this manner. Go, this consort Tai Jin incident is your best opportunity. Use your wisdom to help the king of Qi regain his trust. After saying these words, old Master Yao closed his eyes. Yes, father. Yao Guangyi bowed and slowly and respectfully retreated out of the room. When he came, he was filled with worries. But when he left, it was as though a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders. Wang Chong knew that regardless of whether it was the consort Tai Jin incident or the regional commander's incident, it wasn't something that could be resolved within a short period of time. The turmoil in the royal court was bound to last for a very long time. However, all of this had nothing to do with him. After paying his respects to his grandfather, Wang Chong's life quickly returned to normal. Every day, he would head to the Ghost Tree district to play chess before practicing his martial arts. His life was rather regular. As for the second 7-chi long saber, the design of the thick, narrow, and thick-backed Wuxia steel saber, it had already been completed. Wang Chong had entrusted the initial work to Tuoba Guiyuan. As for the crucial quenching and tempering of the saber, Wang Chong would handle it personally when the time came. Origin Energy Tier 6. Perhaps it's time for me to choose some cultivation techniques that can boost my strength. While cultivating alone near the fake mountain in the garden, a thought suddenly flashed across Wang Chong's mind. It was Su Xian of the Su clan. Even though he had lost, Su Xian's fragrant elephant technique had left a deep impression on him. The Su clan was a duke of the Tang dynasty, and the martial arts bestowed upon them by the Holy Emperor back then was naturally extraordinary. Compared to the cultivation techniques of many general clans, the fragrant elephant technique was definitely one of the top-notch cultivation techniques that could boost one's strength. It was due to this cultivation technique that Su Xian was able to stand out among his peers in the capital. If he didn't use the Herculean punch technique and just relied on pure strength, Wang Chong might not be a match for Su Xian. Upon reaching Origin Energy Tier 6, one would be in a completely different world. Speed, strength, and dexterity, these were three different paths. Most people would subconsciously choose cultivation techniques that boosted their strength, and Wang Chong was no exception. However, it wasn't because Wang Chong chose the strength-type path for himself. Rather, it was because Wang Chong had no other choice. Origin Energy Tier 6 could only choose cultivation techniques that boosted one's strength. Wang Chong's mind whirred, and soon, he went through the cultivation techniques from his previous life. Wang Chong first filtered out the ordinary strength-type cultivation techniques. To Wang Chong, strength-type cultivation techniques had to at least reach the level of fragrant elephant technique, and it would be best if he could surpass it. I got it. A thought flashed across Wang Chong's mind, and he suddenly recalled an ultimate art. To Wang Chong, who eventually became the Grand Marshal of the Central Plains, this ultimate art wasn't much of a formidable technique. However, In the origin energy realm, this was definitely the fastest technique to boost one's strength. Might of the barbaric god. This was the result of everyone's brainstorming. It was the fastest, strongest, and best cultivation technique to increase a cultivator's strength. It was also the most efficient. Back then, they were prepared to promote it among the warriors so as to allow the human warriors to stand against the otherworldly invaders and suppress them completely. If they succeeded, they might even be able to turn the tides of the war, allowing the otherworldly invaders to come from the other side. Due to this unexpected success, the generals of the Central Plains, including the elders, were excited for a very long time. But in the end, this plan was put on hold. The reason was simple. Even though Might of the barbaric god was powerful and could boost one's strength by leaps and bounds, there was a huge flaw in it. One had to have a tiger bone, root bone in order to cultivate Might of the barbaric god. This was due to the fact that most warriors weren't suited for it. Those who were truly suited for it were few and far between. On the other hand, raising one's root bone was an extremely long and arduous process. In the end, the entire plan failed. Chapter 113. I have already reached Origin Energy Tier 6, and my root bone has reached Panther Bone 3 Dan Pinnacle. However, it won't be easy for me to advance from Panther Bone 3 Dan to Tiger Bone Realm. Wang Chong thought. In the world of martial arts, there were many cultivation techniques that had a high requirement on one's root bone. The more formidable a cultivation technique was, the higher the requirement on one's root bone. If one's root bone wasn't up to par, it would be impossible for one to cultivate it. Given Wang Chong's current cultivation realm, it was impossible for him to reach the level of Tiger Bone. It's not impossible to raise my root bone to Tiger Bone, standing near the fake mountain, Wang Chong's mind whirred. There were things that could raise one's root bone within a short period of time, and the Sioux clan's bone forging pill was one of them. Other than that, Wang Chong also knew of some methods to raise one's root bone. However, there weren't many that were suitable for him and could be put to practical use. I've got it. A thought flashed across Wang Chong's mind, and he suddenly recalled something. In the Central Plains, if one were to talk about the places with the most pills, it would undoubtedly be the royal palace and the various kings' residences. Especially in the imperial palace, there was a group of imperial alchemists who specialized in refining pills for the sacred emperor, the princes and princesses, as well as the concubines and concubines of the imperial court. There was a huge number of these alchemists, and they were strictly controlled by the royal family. The pills they forged would flow into the royal treasury and become the source of pills bestowed to the imperial army, kings, and officials. Every single one of these pills was strictly controlled, and they were even labeled with a serial number. Thus, it was rare for one to obtain them in the outside world. The other place where the pills were forged was the residences of the various kings. Every single king had a group of alchemists who forged pills for them. Some of these alchemists had come to the king's side, and some were bestowed by the royal family. The number of alchemists couldn't be compared to that of the royal family. Usually, there would only be a few of them, a dozen of them, or at most 20 of them. To the princes, these people were undoubtedly important strategic resources. Therefore, every prince consort took their alchemist team very seriously. They wouldn't easily let outsiders come into contact with them, let alone let their pills get out. Because of these exclusive alchemists of the imperial palace, almost every imperial prince was a top-notch expert. Whether it was the king of Song or king of Qi. The consumption of every single prince of the imperial family was a huge hole. In addition, the prince's mansion also had to bestow gifts to the guards, attendants, children, advisors. Therefore, the pills of any prince of the imperial family were far from enough. Therefore, although the imperial palace and the various kings' mansions had the most elixirs in storage, none of the elixirs were leaked out. To outsiders, the pills from these two places were unattainable and out of reach. However, Wang Chong knew of a secret way to obtain the pills that were circulating in those places. This was something that happened in his previous life. Back then, the great upheaval had destroyed the entire Central Plains. Due to the calamity, people from all walks of life were gathered together. Regardless of whether it was the lofty royal family, the boorish roving bandits, or the honest peasants. In a disaster, everyone was equal. In the face of death, everyone will become afraid. Due to fear, many things that one normally wouldn't talk about were no longer taboo. Instead, they became a way to release one's stress and fear. It was there that Wang Chong met a distressed alchemist. It was from him that Wang Chong learned that there was a secret faction among the alchemists of the royal family and the king's mansions. They would make false reports, conceal the pills they had forged, and then secretly sell them outside the royal family and the king's mansions in order to profit from it. This kind of private behavior by the imperial family and the royal family's alchemists had actually happened in every dynasty, and the current dynasty was no exception. But even so, this didn't mean that outsiders could easily buy their pills or join this small group. Alchemists concealing the number of pills, or making false reports, whether it was in the imperial palace or the various kings' mansions, were strictly prohibited. In order to serve as a warning to others, they would generally be severely punished. As this was a matter of life and death, the alchemist kept this matter a secret. Furthermore, it was extremely secretive, making it difficult for outsiders to join their faction. If not for that great upheaval, it would have been impossible for someone like Wang Chong to know of the existence of the alchemist faction. Falling Jade Pavilion. Wang Chong quickly recalled the place that the alchemist told him about. It was a secret residence that the alchemist bought. Even though it looked ordinary on the surface, it was actually a secret gathering point for the alchemist faction. There were many such gathering points in the capital. Every single gathering point had an alchemist in charge of it. If a problem were to arise in a gathering point, they would quickly abandon it so as to protect the entire alchemist faction. The reason why Wang Chong remembered it was because there was a unique alchemist in the Falling Jade Pavilion. If Wang Chong wanted to join the faction and purchase pills, this alchemist was his only chance. Let's go take a look. With a thought, Wang Chong summoned Shanhai and Meng Long, boarded a carriage, and headed for the Falling Jade Pavilion. The Falling Jade Pavilion wasn't a tavern or a tea house. Rather, it was a private residence located at the edge of the capital, and it stood amidst the many single-story houses. How deserted. Shanhai and Wang Chong popped their heads out of the carriage to look at the house not too far away. The vermilion gate and the mottled walls were tightly shut, and there wasn't the slightest sound of dogs barking. It seemed as though it had been abandoned for a very long time. Young master, are you certain that this is the place? It doesn't seem like there's anyone here. Shanhai turned to look at his young master and asked. The surroundings of the residence were shabby, and it gave off a bad vibe. Don't worry, this is the place. Wang Chong recalled the anecdotes that the alchemist told him back then. Opening his eyes, he looked at the mottled plaque on the entrance of the residence with the words Falling Jade Pavilion written on it and nodded his head seriously. It was naturally impossible for an alchemist to steal and sell pills from the imperial palace and king residences in broad daylight. This residence seemed deserted, but it was in line with the style of an alchemist. I wonder if there's anyone in this residence. Wang Chong thought. The alchemists in the royal palace and the king's residences were extremely busy, and there was no rest to speak of in the midst of pill forging. Thus, these strongholds were truly deserted most of the time. Only when there was a need every month would the alchemist appear here to carry out all sorts of transactions or exchanges. Falling Jade Pavilion was definitely the place, but whether there was anyone inside or not, and whether this was the time for them to carry out their transactions or meet up, Wang Chong couldn't be too sure. Ping! Just as he was hesitating, the door suddenly opened. 5 figures lowered their heads and subconsciously covered their faces as they walked out quickly from inside. Even from afar, the three of them could smell the strong scent of pills on the 5 figures. It's the alchemist. The same thought flashed through the minds of the three of them. Young master, which one? Shenhai and Meng Long turned to look at Wang Chong. Wang Chong said that he wanted them to follow an alchemist, but there were 5 of them here, and even if each of them took one, it would still be far from enough. Wang Chong also frowned anxiously. These people were very alert. As they walked, they subconsciously sized up their surroundings, harboring a strong sense of vigilance. Moreover, they were walking very fast, giving off the feeling that they were in a hurry and were in a hurry. If he didn't find the person in his memories soon, these people would probably leave. Which one? Which one? Wang Chong's mind was in turmoil. Alchemists were all extremely wary of one another. Under normal circumstances, no matter what methods one used, they would never accept one. In fact, it would be hard for one to even get close to them. The moment one felt that something was amiss, they might make use of the might of the king's estate or the royal palace to deal with one. This was something that the alchemist reminded him time and time again. The moment one was noticed by an alchemist or sensed danger, that person would immediately report it to the entire alchemist society. At that time, it would no longer be this secret alchemist society dealing with one. Instead, it would be all the alchemists in the royal palace and the king's mansions dealing with one. If the royal family knew that someone was trying to harm their royal alchemist or the alchemist in the king's mansion, then there would be a series of troubles. It would be a small matter if the guards came out. Next, it would be the princes and princesses, or the young princes and princesses of the king's mansions. Once an alchemist was involved, it would be no small matter. Therefore, if Wang Chong wanted to get in touch with the alchemist in the royal palace and king's mansions, he wouldn't have much of a chance. The 5 alchemists walked very quickly. Just as Wang Chong was hesitating, they had almost reached the edge. Creak. Just as Wang Chong was hesitating, the door suddenly creaked open. Behind the 5 alchemists, another middle-aged man wearing green satin walked out. He looked a little strange. He looked outside and immediately walked toward the east side of the street. Unlike the others, he walked very slowly. He looked relaxed and not that nervous. That's him. Seeing the middle-aged man's hand in his sleeve, Wang Chong's mind flashed. He suddenly knew who he was looking for. Liu Zhizhang. This was the alchemist that Wang Chong was looking for. The dragon has 9 sons, each different. Most of the members of the secret alchemist society were extremely vigilant, careful, and vigilant. It was almost impossible to get close to them, let alone make friends with them. However, this kind of thing was not absolute. There would always be some people who could be taken advantage of. This Liu Zhizhang was the opportunity that Wang Chong had learned from the alchemist. This alchemist's real name was Zhang Zhongshu. Liu Zhizhang was his nickname. Although he looked normal, everyone in the alchemist society knew that he had 6 fingers on his right hand. When he was young, because he was addicted to gambling, he owed a loan shark and had one of his fingers chopped off. However, because he was born with 6 fingers on his right hand, he still had 5 after one of his fingers was chopped off. Therefore, he looked like an ordinary person. This secret was not known to outsiders, but Liu Zhizhang himself knew. Therefore, when he walked, sat, or lay down, his right hand would be curled up into his sleeve. He did not want others to see it. Chapter 114. Back then, that alchemist had told Wang Chong many interesting anecdotes about the art of alchemy. The reason why Wang Chong paid attention to this Liu Zhizhang was because of something he was about to do a few years later. Due to the fact that life in the royal palace was extremely boring, especially when it came to alchemy, Liu Zhizhang's gambling addiction worsened after he became an alchemist. Eventually, it got out of hand, and a few years later, he owed a sky-high loan. In order to repay the debt, Liu Zhang actually lowered the threshold and took the initiative to introduce a magnanimous merchant from the capital into the secret organization of the alchemist. Smuggling alchemist pills from the royal palace and king's residences was supposed to be an extremely secretive matter. No outsider could ever find out about it. However, that magnanimous merchant wasn't someone who could keep a secret. Later on, because of this magnanimous merchant, the matter of the alchemist secretly smuggling pills was finally exposed. In the end, it directly led to the death of this alchemist. From this point of view, this Liu Zhang was actually a pitiful person. This was because his future had already been decided if Wang Chong didn't intervene. It's a pity that it isn't a few years later yet. Otherwise, I wouldn't have to go through so much trouble and could easily enter the secret organization of the alchemist. Wang Chong thought to himself as he looked at the slowly walking Liu Zhang through the window of the carriage. The secret organization of the alchemist was known for its high vigilance and high threshold, making it difficult to enter. If it was a few years later, when that incident happened, Wang Chong only needed to replace that magnanimous merchant and fork out a sum of money to easily squeeze into the organization, obtaining an endless supply of pills. However, all of this had yet to happen. Liu Zhang might not be as easy to talk to as he was in his previous life, and he might not be able to provide such a good opportunity to Wang Chong. But at this moment, Wang Chong did not have much choice. Among all the alchemists, this Liu Zhang was undoubtedly the easiest to acquire. If Wang Chong wanted to raise his bone frame to tiger bone rank in a short time, this was his only chance. The earlier he could join the alchemist's secret organization, the earlier Wang Chong could obtain a steady supply of pills. Even if it wasn't for the Herculean force, Wang Chong was determined to get the alchemist's secret organization. The earlier they entered, the earlier they would obtain substantial benefits. Whether or not we can form this alchemist's secret society will depend on this. A thought flashed through Wang Chong's mind. He quickly opened the carriage door and walked out. In the blink of an eye, Wang Chong caught up with Liu Zhang. Daoist teacher, this junior pays his respects. In front of Liu Zhang, Wang Chong stopped and bowed with a smile. Wang. Upon hearing the word Daoist, six-fingered Zhang, who was still lazing around a moment ago, felt as though he had been stabbed. In an instant, his face warped in shock. Who are you? What do you want? Liu Zhang seemed to have turned into an entirely different person. His eyes narrowed and his entire body tensed up. He resembled a fully drawn bow that was in a state of charging. He exuded intense hostility and wariness toward Wang Chong, as though he would make a move if Wang Chong were to say a single wrong word. Daoist teacher, Daoist teacher. In the Central Plains, as long as an outsider met an alchemist, they would respectfully address him as Daoist teacher. To Liu Zhang, a single sentence from Wang Chong had revealed too much information. Liu Zhang's instinctive reaction was that the matter of him secretly smuggling pills from the royal palace and the Wang residence had been exposed. It's indeed hard to get close to these alchemist organizations. Wang Chong's face warped. Of all the alchemists, Liu Zhang could be considered as the easiest to deal with. However, upon hearing the word Daoist teacher, his face warped. Just like the other alchemists, he was extremely wary of him, making it hard for him to get close to him. Daoist teacher, there's no need to misunderstand. I am Wang Chong, and I don't have any other intentions. I just wish to request a pill from the alchemist. Wang Chong smiled. How do you know that I am a Daoist teacher? Liu Zhang ignored Wang Chong's words and stared at the word Daoist teacher. He really wanted to know how Wang Chong discovered his identity. My nose isn't damaged. How could I not recognize you, Daoist teacher? Wang Chong smiled and made a sniffing gesture. Liu Zhang's face changed. He grabbed his sleeves and sniffed hard. Sure enough, he smelled a strong smell of pills. Alchemists had been dealing with alchemy furnaces and pills for a long time, so this smell couldn't escape. I see. Liu Zhizhang felt relieved and his face looked much better. Say no more. I won't concoct pills for you. Six-fingered Zhang had a cold expression on his face, as if he was 1,000 miles away from him. Realizing that Wang Chong didn't find out that they were secretly peddling pills from the imperial palace and Wang residence, Liu Zhizhang wasn't as vigilant as before. After Liu Zhizhang said this, he ignored Wang Chong and got up to leave. Daoist teacher, please wait. Whether you are willing or not, I have a gift for you. Gift? Humph, you are just a kid. What gift can you give me? Liu Zhizhang snorted and snorted. Daoist teacher, take a look and you will know. Wang Chong smiled and gestured to the person behind him. Shanhai carried a brocade box that he had prepared in advance and brought it over. Humph, deliberately mystifying, Liu Zhizhang opened the brocade box and scolded with a face full of disdain. But the next moment, when he saw the golden radiance coming from the brocade box, Liu Zhizhang was stunned and couldn't say a word. Gold, there was at least 2,000 to 3,000 gold taels. Liu Zhizhang stared at Wang Chong in shock, as though this was the first time he had met the other party. 2,000 to 3,000 gold taels wasn't something a child could take out casually. Daoist teacher, this is a small token of my appreciation. I hope that you can accept it. After saying those words, before Six-Fingered Zhang could react, Wang Chong immediately led Shanhai and Meng Long back to where they came from. Entering the carriage, they disappeared into the streets. Leaving Liu Zhizhang standing on the streets with 2,000 to 3,000 gold taels in his hands, he was stunned speechless. What in the world is going on? Liu Zhizhang stared at the back view of Wang Chong's carriage in bewilderment. He had never seen such a situation before. Without saying anything or receiving anything, he left 2,000 to 3,000 gold taels and left without saying a word. There are weird things every year, but this year, there are especially many. Since someone is giving me gold, do you think that I wouldn't dare to accept it? A hint of greed flashed across Liu Zhizhang's eyes as he kept the gold taels given by Wang Chong. The reason why he risked his life to smuggle pills from the royal palace and the various kings' residences was all for the sake of profit. If someone was giving him gold for free, why wouldn't he accept it? It's been a long time since I went to the gambling den. This amount of gold is more than enough for me to spend. Liu Zhizhang flagged down a carriage and headed straight for the gambling den. Young master, since you wanted to give him gold, why didn't you give him a little more? At the same time, Shanhai looked at his young master with a perplexed expression. The young master had always been extravagant, spending 1,000 gold taels to buy a horse's bones. A few thousand gold taels to 10,000 gold taels meant nothing to him. Previously, for the Hyderabad ores, the young master paid Ablanadin and Arloja an extra 10,000 gold taels. Now that he was facing an alchemist, he shouldn't be so stingy. 2,000 to 3,000 gold taels wasn't his style. I'm willing to give him 10,000 gold taels, but he has to accept it first. Doesn't that mean that we have ulterior motives for him? Wang Chong chuckled. The two of them were stunned for a moment. Wang Chong chuckled and didn't say anything. Liu Zhizhang was a unique group of alchemists, and they were extremely cautious and wary. It wasn't an easy task to infiltrate their ranks. It was fine as long as he left a good impression on them. Otherwise, going too far would be as bad as falling short. Meng Long, the information I wanted you to gather. Did you manage to get it? Wang Chong asked all of a sudden. I got it. Meng Long nodded his head. He flipped open a scroll and passed it over. There are a total of 6 gambling dens in the vicinity of the Falling Jade Pavilion. 3 of them are small, 2 of them are medium, and the last one is the largest. What's the name of the largest gambling den? Wang Chong didn't take the scroll. Golden Sky Great Gambling Den. Meng Long said. Golden Sky Great Gambling Den, Wang Chong frowned. He had some impression of this place. It seemed to be a gambling den controlled by the Gogurians. In his previous life, Wang Chong was extremely curious as to what kind of person could force the esteemed alchemist to such an extent, going against the rules and introducing a wealthy merchant into his organization. If not for some special reason, Liu Zhizhang wouldn't have taken such a huge risk. However, if the other party was the Gogurians, then everything could be explained. The Gogurians were the typical outlaws. They were vicious, aggressive, and fearless. Liu Zhizhang's identity as an alchemist might be effective on others, but it might not be effective on these outlaws. In the circle of scions that Wang Chong used to hang out with, everyone knew that one could go anywhere as long as one didn't go to the wineries, gambling dens, teahouses, and brothels controlled by the Gogurians. It wasn't just because the Gogurians were vicious, aggressive, and unruly. More importantly, they had connections with another fearsome faction in the Tang dynasty, the Gogurian Warrior Organization, or Gogurian Assassin Organization. It was common sense not to get involved with the Gogurians. But clearly, Liu Zhizhang was an alchemist, and he didn't know much about it. As an alchemist in the royal palace and king's residences, he would always choose the most luxurious locations. Without even thinking, Wang Chong was certain that Liu Zhizhang would choose the Golden Sky Great Gambling Den, and it just so happened to be a gambling den controlled by the Gogurians. Shenhai and Meng Long follow him for the next few days. I will have Ablonadon and Arloja assist you. If he's in danger, save him. No matter what, don't let him get hurt. While contemplating, Wang Chong tapped on the window lightly with his right index finger and said, "Also, there's 20,000 gold taels in the carriage. If the situation is urgent and you need money, pass it to the alchemist. If it's insufficient, you can have Ablonadon come to the residence to take more. There's no limit to the amount." Ah! Upon hearing that there was no limit to the amount, Shenhai and Meng Long were astonished. They knew that the young master wouldn't fall in love with anyone easily, and those who caught his eye were usually extraordinary. However, they didn't expect that Wang Chong would place such importance on the alchemist. "Yes, young master. We'll definitely accomplish our mission." The duo lowered their heads and replied. Bring your tokens with you. Show them when necessary to avoid trouble. Go." Wang Chong waved his hands. Troublesome people were always like magnets that attracted trouble. A gambling addict, an alchemist, and a gambling den controlled by a Gogurian. At this moment, Wang Chong could already see a conflict not too far away. Wang Chong knew that with his cultivation realm, there was no need for him to get involved in this conflict. It was sufficient for Shenhai, Meng Long, Ablonadon, and Arloja to take his place. Chapter 115. Initially, Wang Chong thought that it would take at least a few days for him to make any progress on Liu Zhizhang's matter. However, Wang Chong underestimated Liu Zhizhang's brazenness on the gambling table, as well as the other party's confidence in his identity as an alchemist. That very night, Liu Zhizhang was assaulted. Even though he possessed extraordinary attainments in the way of pill, the higher one's cultivation in the way of pill, the harsher one's life became. As such, Liu Zhizhang became increasingly brazen on the gambling table. That very night, Liu Zhizhang was assaulted by the Gogurians. Those people used some extreme means, such as explosives, knockout powder, knockout grenades, and even lime. If not for Shenhai and Meng Long arriving with Ablonadon and Arloja, Liu Zhizhang would have been stabbed a few times and his hand would have been chopped off. The Gogurians were known for their viciousness and cruelty in the capital. However, this matter was something that Liu Zhizhang asked for. He only had 2,000 to 3,000 gold taels on him, but he actually dared to borrow 20,000 gold taels from the Golden Sky Casino. Adding on the previous debt, he actually owed the Golden Sky Casino more than 50,000 gold taels. His guts sure were plentiful. Liu Zhizhang had borrowed 20,000 gold taels from the casino earlier in the day, and according to the agreement, he would return the debt by 4:45 in the afternoon. However, Lu Zhangji had been drinking in the casino, and he had forgotten about the matter completely. This infuriated the Gogurians. Have you paid off all the gambling money for him? Behind the study table, Wang Chong asked. Reporting to young master, according to young master's instructions, we have already paid up for him. After paying up for him, we left. We didn't interact much with him. Shen Hai and Meng Long replied. After helping the other party so greatly, Lu Zhangji casually gave him 50,000 gold taels without asking for anything at all. This was truly incomprehensible to the both of them. However, this was the young master's decision, so they weren't in a position to comment on it. Very good. From tomorrow onwards, send him 2,000 taels of gold every day. Other than that, don't say anything else. Wang Chong said. Yes, young master. Shen Hai and Meng Long replied. Nearly 50,000 gold taels had been given away, but he had not received anything in return. If it was someone else, they would definitely not do it. However, Wang Chong didn't care at all. In the secret community of alchemists, there was a huge profit to be made. However, the threshold was also unusually high. The customers they sold to were often people who had been around for decades, or even longer. Due to the long period of time, this kind of relationship could be tested. Moreover, the alchemist was extremely cautious when it came to choosing new clients. Often, they might not even choose one in a few decades. It was precisely because of this cautious and strict attitude that the secret group of the alchemist was able to maintain its secrecy outside of the royal palace and the various kings' residences. To Wang Chong, as long as he was able to come into contact with this group, as long as he could squeeze into their group and purchase a steady stream of precious pills, it was no longer important for him to give away the 50,000 gold taels. Given that Liu Zhizhang was still wary of him, it was still too early to talk to him about joining the alchemist group. What Wang Chong was doing now was to continuously give him gold taels. Through this method, he would be able to increase the other party's goodwill toward him. One day, when Liu Zhizhang was no longer wary of him, Wang Chong believed that he would come looking for him. After making the arrangements, Wang Chong continued to cultivate his dragon bone art in peace. Days passed and Wang Chong's strength grew by the day. Even though he hadn't achieved a breakthrough in his root bone, it was becoming denser with each passing day. 3 days passed in a flash. Even though Wang Chong's dragon bone art hadn't progressed much, there was an unexpected change on Shen Hai and Meng Long's side. Young master, Liu Zhizhang seeks an audience with you. This time, he took the initiative to look for us and indicated that he wishes to meet you. Wang Chong was cultivating in the courtyard when Shen Hai and Meng Long suddenly walked over. Oh! Wang Chong's eyes lit up in surprise. Liu Zhizhang seemed to be even more impatient than he had imagined. Let him in. Wang Chong met Liu Zhizhang in his study. Compared to Liu Zhizhang a few days ago, the current Liu Zhizhang didn't seem as aloof, arrogant, and unapproachable as before. However, Wang Chong could sense deep doubt and unease from him. Zhang Zhongshu pays respect to Gongzi. Liu Zhizhang bowed, looking a little uneasy. Honestly speaking, the identity of an alchemist allowed him to make a name for himself anywhere. Thus, most alchemists would be arrogant before others. Just that, Zhang Zhongshu didn't expect the person who pestered him in front of the falling jade pavilion to have such a powerful background. Even though the identity of an alchemist wasn't bad, it was nothing compared to the Wang clan. He, master, we meet again. Wang Chong chuckled. Glancing at Liu Zhizhang's left hand, Wang Chong saw a massive sword wound protruding from the latter's sleeve. It seemed to be the wound he suffered from the Gogurians not too long ago. Gongzi, don't make fun of me. What master? If I knew that you're Duke Jiu's grandson, I wouldn't dare to slight you. Liu Zhizhang said uneasily. Master, you're being too polite. May I know what business you have with me? Wang Chong turned to look at Liu Zhizhang with a smile. Gongzi, you're being too polite. I'm here to thank Gongzi. Gongzi has saved my life and helped me pay off my debt of 50,000 gold taels. I'm deeply grateful for your help. However, if Gongzi wishes to request for a few pills from me, please forgive me for being unable to do so. As for the 50,000 gold taels, I'm unable to pay it off for the time being. However, if Gongzi wants it, I'll try my best to return it to Gongzi. Liu Zhizhang lowered his head uneasily. He, who said that I want to request for a few pills from you? Wang Chong chuckled. Isn't that so? Taken aback, Liu Zhizhang abruptly lifted his head in surprise. All along, he thought that the reason why Wang Chong helped him so much was so that he could forge pills for him. As such, he had been feeling uneasy. He was the alchemist of the royal palace. If he were to forge pills for others outside, he would surely be severely punished. Thus, this was the reason why he was feeling uneasy. However, it was rare for a generous person like Wang Chong to give away 50,000 gold taels without asking for the reason. This was something that Liu Zhizhang rarely met. He couldn't bear to part with it just like that. Thus, he decided to meet the Wang family. However, from the looks of it now, the truth was completely different from what he had imagined. Master, pills flow for 1,000 years, cauldron flames burn for 10,000 autumns. I would like to take a look. I wonder if Master can help me take a look. Wang Chong smiled. Hua. The previously calm Liu Zhizhang's expression changed abruptly. You. How did you know? Six-fingered Zhang stared at Wang Chong in shock. It was as if the deepest secret in his heart had been seen through. Pills flow for 1,000 autumns, cauldron flames burn for 10,000 autumns. This was a couplet in the royal palace. It was the origin of everything, and also the secret code for the alchemist to incite each other. The secret organization of the alchemist, this was the deepest secret in Liu Zhizhang's heart. He never expected that Wang Chong would be able to see through it. His relationship with Wang Chong had always been as an ordinary alchemist. He had always believed that this was what Wang Chong was thinking, but he hadn't expected Wang Chong to see through him so early on. This made Liu Zhizhang tremble with fear. Master, there's no need to be surprised. If I wanted to leak it, I would have done so long ago. Why would I wait until now? Wang Chong smiled. He picked up the teapot on the table, poured a cup of fragrant tea, and pushed it over. No matter what he did, the secret organization of the alchemist, as long as he mentioned it, it would cause a backlash. The fact that Liu Zhizhang was able to stay here and not rush out was already beyond his expectations. Since Gongzi knows about pills flow for 1,000 autumns, cauldron flames burn for 10,000 autumns, you should know the danger of this matter. Isn't Gongzi afraid of bringing trouble to the family? Liu Zhizhang took a deep breath and raised his head. When he first came in, his face was still cramped, restrained, and uneasy. But when Wang Chong mentioned the words pills flow for 1,000 autumns, cauldron flames burn for 10,000 autumns, his entire person changed, as if this was his true appearance. There was no longer a trace of uneasiness or fear. Hearing Liu Zhizhang's words, Wang Chong immediately became silent. The pills refined in the royal palace and the royal residences had always been a taboo. It was definitely not a good thing to be involved with the alchemist organization that smuggled pills. It was very possible that it would bring a lot of trouble to the Wang family, anger the royal palace, and attract the hostility of the royal princes. For a few pills, it was really not worth it. Under normal circumstances, even if Wang Chong knew that there was such a secret alchemist organization, he would definitely not do it. But Wang Chong was well aware that a calamity was about to descend. In this catastrophe, everything would fall apart. The royal palace, the royal residences, the laws, the family, everything that was precious would be scorched to the ground. In this catastrophe, it was most important to strengthen himself as much as possible and protect others. As for the danger that might arise from being involved with the alchemist organization in the royal palace and the royal residences, it was not within Wang Chang's consideration. I have my own considerations on this matter. Master need not worry too much. Master, please lead me into the sect. Wang Chong raised his head and smiled lightly. This time, it was Liu Zhizhang who was silent. His original intention was to make Wang Chong back off. Unexpectedly, Wang Chong's willpower was even stronger than his. It was as if Wang Chong had made up his mind to enter his group. If it was any other time, Liu Zhizhang would definitely not agree. He would not even consider it. But Wang Chong had once helped him, and he already knew of their existence. Liu Zhizhang could not pretend not to know. Chapter 116. I really don't understand Gongzi, why do you insist on joining us? Given the Wang clan's identity and status, this risk is simply too great. Liu Zhizhang took in a deep breath. For someone like Wang Chong who knew of the alchemist's secret, he had no choice but to let him go. Since he couldn't kill him, he could only think of a way to recruit him. Even though the alchemist's secret organization rarely opened to strangers and rarely accepted outsiders, it wasn't as if there was no chance at all. Gongzi, if you insist on joining us, there's nothing I can do. If you just want to obtain some pills, there's a chance right now. However, the price is too high. You can consider it yourself. Liu Zhizhang sighed. What chance? Speak. Wang Chang's eyes lit up and he blurted out. It wasn't in vain that he had spent so much time. There was still a chance. The alchemist organizations in the royal palace and the various kings' residences have always had some quotas for outsiders. These quotas can't be considered as true buyers, nor can they be considered as members of our organization. At most, they can only be considered as external partners. These partners are known as shadows. The number of shadows has always been fixed, but recently, there has been a vacancy. I can find a way to apply for you. However, the price of each shadow is too high, and it might be beyond your imagination. Are you sure that you really need them? Liu Zhizhang said with uncertainty. How much does it cost to become a shadow? Wang Chong asked. 200,000. Gold. Liu Zhizhang said seriously. Upon hearing those words, even Wang Chong's expression changed slightly. He knew that the threshold to enter the alchemist's organization was very high, but Wang Chong didn't expect it to be this high. 200,000 gold was an unbearable price for the majority of powers, even the great clans. For many people, even if the alchemist was willing to recruit them, they might not be able to afford the price of 200,000 gold taels. If Wang Chong had not discovered the business opportunity in Hyderabad and made a fortune from it, even if he had known about the alchemist's secret organization and the existence of Liu Zhizhang, he would not have been able to make use of it. This was not something that ordinary people could come into contact with or use. These groups were formed by the alchemist of the imperial palace and the king's mansions. The threshold was so high that it was enough to make many people flinch. Furthermore, this 200,000 is only a qualification, not the price of the pill. If you need to buy medicinal pills, you'll have to pay extra. Liu Zhizhang's voice traveled into his ears. Moreover, the price of the elixir purchased with the identity of the dark shadow far exceeds the true price of the elixir. Even so, will you consider it? The internal rules of the alchemist's secret organization were far more careful and prudent than the outside world could imagine. Every single pill had a serial number, and this was something that even Six-Fingered Zhang couldn't do anything about. Once he was discovered, what awaited him was probably a fate worse than death. Those great powers that were inextricably linked with the alchemist were enough to put him beyond redemption. Based on what Liu Zhizhang said, he would absolutely not recommend him to do so. Yes. A resolute voice came into his ears. What? Liu Zhizhang's body trembled violently as he looked at Wang Chong in front of him in shock. I said yes. Wang Chong chuckled and repeated his words without the slightest hesitation. 200,000. And if they find any problems, they can cancel your qualification at any time. Are you going to agree to this? Liu Zhizhang said in surprise. Yes. Of course I'm going to agree. Why not? Wang Chong smiled. If it was him in his previous life, he would definitely not agree to 200,000 gold taels. This was a sky-high price. Not only would he be buying a qualification to enter the outer circle, he could even cancel it at any time. But in this life, Wang Chong knew that regardless of how many gold taels he had, it would only be a pile of metal that could not be consumed in the future. What he should be considering was how to maximize the benefits of this pile of metal. 200,000 gold taels. I can pass it to you tomorrow. On top of that, 30,000 gold taels is for your hard work. Shanhai and Meng Long will pass it to you. Wang Chong faintly smiled. Liu Zhizhang was speechless. Wang Chong's reaction was completely different from what he had expected. Ever since he came into contact with Wang Chong, Liu Zhizhang realized that he had underestimated this young man. Since Gongzi has already made up your mind, I won't say anything more. Give me a few days, and I'll settle it for you. Also, since this is the first time you become a shadow, you can make a request. Tell us what pill you want. As long as it isn't too excessive or the pill you want is too expensive, we will try our best to satisfy your request. Have you thought about it? What kind of pill do you want? Liu Zhizhang asked. Tiger bone rejuvenation pill. I see, I understand. Liu Zhizhang was taken aback for a moment before nodding his head. Once I receive any news, I will inform Gongzi as soon as possible. Liu Zhizhang quickly took his leave. Disappearing along with him was another 230,000 gold taels. Liu Zhizhang's efficiency far exceeded Wang Chong's expectations. On the second night, Liu Zhizhang sent someone to deliver a message that 200,000 gold taels had been received. Wang Chong's qualification to become a shadow had been officially approved. As a shadow, he couldn't actively contact the alchemist. Only the alchemist could contact the shadow. In addition, each shadow could only purchase a maximum of 3 pills a month. But in a year, they couldn't purchase less than 6 pills. Otherwise, they would be disqualified. The first reason was to limit the number of pills a shadow could purchase. The second was to test the financial strength of a shadow. If a shadow couldn't even purchase 6 pills a year, he would be disqualified. I've finally succeeded. Nearly 300,000 gold taels in exchange for such a small token. Wang Chong thought to himself as he looked at the purple gold token in front of him. It was 2 fingers wide and exquisitely made. On one side of the token, there was a picture of a purple alchemy fire, accompanied by some black shadows. This was the symbol of the shadow. In his previous life, although Wang Chong had heard of this secret organization, this was the first time he had come into contact with it. Furthermore, he was only an outer member and could be disqualified at any time. The alchemist organization's threshold was so high and the vetting was so strict that it made one's hair stand on end. Luckily, it's not like I've gained nothing. In the study, Wang Chong's gaze shifted to a brocade box on the table. A thick fragrance of pills wafted out from the box. It was different from the body-tempering pills and bone-tempering pills that Wang Chong had swallowed before. This fragrance was incomparably thick. Furthermore, if one looked closely, they could even see traces of purple mist coming out from the box. These pills lingered around the box but didn't dissipate. Tiger Bone Small Rejuvenating Pill. Even in his previous life, it was a famous and well-known name. Other than the top alchemist in the royal palace and the king's residences, it would be very difficult to find it anywhere else. Bang! Wang Chong opened the brocade box and took out a round pill that was emitting a purple aura. With a grunt, he swallowed it. In an instant, a strong wind blew in the study. The roar of a ferocious tiger could be heard faintly in the air. After that, everything returned to silence. After an unknown period of time, a series of crackling sounds erupted from within Wang Cheng's body. "I've finally succeeded." Wang Cheng suddenly stood up from the ground. His eyes opened wide, emitting a shocking ray of light. An aura that was much stronger than before burst out from his body. This aura was fierce, violent, dignified, and arrogant, like a ferocious tiger that was waiting to pounce. Tiger bone level. Once one's root bone was upgraded to this level, one's strength and endurance would be greatly improved. It would no longer be like the panther bone level. Although a single thrust was extremely fast, it could quickly deplete a martial artist's energy. A tiger's pursuit would never stop after 100 meters. It would continue to pursue relentlessly. Although a tiger bone level martial artist was still not comparable to a real ferocious tiger, and their bones were not as sturdy, it was still a great improvement. Wang Cheng could feel that his body was filled with energy. Compared to before, it had obviously increased by quite a bit. Now, I can finally start cultivating the force of the barbaric god. Wang Cheng let out a long sigh of relief in his heart. Although it was only the most basic, tiger bone level 1, it was enough for Wang Cheng to cultivate the force of the barbaric god. The mental cultivation method of the force of the barbaric god flashed across Wang Cheng's mind. Then, he sat down with his legs crossed and remained motionless. This was the first step of the force of the barbaric god, called qi kneading. While Wang Cheng was concentrating on cultivating the force of the barbaric god, in the imperial court of the Tang dynasty, the matter of consort Taizhen had become a hot topic. Almost all the civil and military officials were involved. No matter what. I must stop His Majesty. Early in the morning, the King of Song slammed his palm on the table and stood up abruptly. The matter of consort Taizhen had reached the most critical moment. However, the development in the imperial court had exceeded the King of Song's expectation. Despite the remonstrations from so many officials and the numerous letters, His Majesty seemed to have made up his mind and completely ignored their advice. In the main hall, whenever an official remonstrated, the Holy Emperor's face would turn livid and frighteningly ugly. On the matter of consort Taizhen, the Holy Emperor had displayed an extraordinarily firm attitude. This had never happened before. In the past, although His Majesty had disagreed, he would never express his stance easily. However, this time, things seemed to be completely different. Lu Ting, get ready. During the morning court session, help me contact the other officials. We will submit a joint letter together. No matter what, we must persuade His Majesty to change his mind. Yes, Your Highness. Lu Ting responded, but his eyes were filled with worry. The current situation in the imperial court was becoming more and more disadvantageous to the King of Song, but the King of Song seemed to be unaware of it. The matter of consort Taizhen was related to the official's reputation and integrity. On this point, even Lu Ting could not persuade him. The imperial edict has arrived. Just as the King of Song was neatly dressed and preparing to enter the palace to attend the morning court session, something strange happened. Just as the King of Song walked to the door, an extremely sharp voice suddenly came from outside. In the blink of an eye, a middle-aged eunuch with a pale face and gray hair, dressed like a palace eunuch with an indescribable feminine aura walked in from outside, holding a golden scroll in his hand. As the middle-aged eunuch walked in, he cast a sidelong glance at the King of Song, his eyes sinister and cold. Eunuch you. Seeing this eunuch, the King of Song's expression changed, and he immediately bowed. The King of Song, hear the imperial edict. In accordance with the will of the heavens, the imperial edict states, the King of Song is worried about national affairs and has overworked himself. He is hereby ordered to rest at home. There is no need for him to attend today's morning court session. End of the imperial edict. Rumble. Chapter 117. Whoosh. A gust of wind blew past. Dark clouds hung low in the sky, and it was dark. The King of Song's mood was as gloomy as the dark clouds above his head. Recuperate at home was a simple phrase, but it was a chasm that stood between him and the imperial court. This was not an order, nor did it say that he had done anything wrong. It was just a kind and concerned advice that excluded him from the court. The emperor's decree cannot be disobeyed. No matter how much preparation he had made and how many plans he had made, they were all for naught at this moment. I didn't expect. The King of Song clenched his fists and slowly closed his eyes. His heart was cold. He had been in the court for more than 20 years, and the emperor and his officials knew each other well. However, this was the first time that the King of Song had encountered such an imperial edict. The content of the imperial edict was simple, without any unnecessary embellishments. From this imperial edict, the King of Song felt a chill. The Holy Emperor had clearly expressed his attitude in this way. The King of Song received the imperial edict. Eunuch Yu raised the imperial edict high and looked at the King of Song coldly. Yes. Thank you, Eunuch Yu. The King of Song respectfully received the imperial edict from Eunuch Yu. Holding the imperial edict in his hand, the King of Song sat in the main hall for a whole day in a daze. The King of Song received the imperial edict. Eunuch Yu smiled coldly and handed over the imperial edict in his hand. This was the second day that the King of Song had received such an imperial edict. The content had not changed a single word. The third day. The fourth day. In the beginning, the King of Song was still ambitious. He wanted to contact the officials and make a big move in the court to stop the Holy Emperor. However, after several days, the King of Song's heart had turned cold. Your Highness, this is not good. Lu Ting stood by his side, looking worried. This is already the fifth day. His Majesty seems to be determined not to let you attend court. Without you in charge of the Ministry of Justice, the Imperial Court, and the Ministry of War, the current situation is very bad. It's still fine in the royal court. There's Lord Wang Zhen to oversee the proceedings. However, there were a lot of trivial matters in the Ministry of Justice and the Ministry of War that needed someone to take care of. In His Imperial Highness's absence, someone else would automatically take over His Imperial Highness's responsibilities. At present, the Prince of Qi's side was already making large movements, dispatching someone to take over His Imperial Highness's responsibilities. If this continues, Your Highness will slowly be ostracized by Prince Qi. Although the King of Song couldn't attend court, Lu Ting could. However, he was merely a grand scholar and had no real power in the imperial court. In this regard, he could only watch and worry helplessly. I know, the King of Song sat alone in the main hall, looking absent-minded. The real situation was far worse than what Lu Ting had described. The King of Song knew that His Majesty was using this method to slowly ostracize him from the imperial court. This was different from any other time. This time, the King of Song felt a cold and hard heart. In his 20-odd years of being a politician, this was the first time the King of Song had lost his power in the imperial court. The imperial edict has arrived. Eunuch Yu held the imperial edict in his hands and strode forward with his head held high. His signature mocking smile hung on his lips as he arrived as promised. By the will of the heavens, the Emperor declares, the King of Song has overworked himself by worrying about the affairs of the nation. He is hereby ordered to rest at home and not to attend court without my decree. Hereby. Rumble. Hearing this, the expressions of the King of Song and Lu Ting changed drastically. This imperial edict was almost identical to the one before, just that a few words were added, not to attend court without my decree. It was just a few simple words, but the meaning was completely different from before. How could this be? Lu Ting widened his eyes and looked at Eunuch Yu in shock. As expected, as expected. I knew it would be like this. I knew it would be like this. The king of Song's heart turned cold, as if he had received a huge blow. Without Jin's decree, he is not allowed to attend the court. These simple words were the harshest blow to King Song. Although the edict did not point out the fault of the king of Song, nor did it strip him of his title, these few simple words were equivalent to effectively expelling the king of Song from the imperial court. From now on, without the Holy Emperor's decree, the king of Song was not allowed to attend court. Not to mention participate in the imperial court. Your Highness, receive the edict. Eunuch Yu's face was pale. He held the imperial edict with one hand and handed it over with a mocking smile. A eunuch in the palace actually dared to mock a prince of the royal family. This was more than just audacious. If not for the Holy Emperor's decree, how would he dare to do this? Thank you, Eunuch Yu. The king of Song's face was ashen as he respectfully received the imperial edict from Eunuch Yu's hands. Your Highness, the king of Song, forgive me for speaking out of turn, but regarding the matter of consort Tai Zhen, you're on your own. Eunuch Yu said this with a sneer, then turned around and left. If the master was unhappy, the servant would naturally be unhappy as well. Right now, everyone in the palace knew that the number one person who opposed the Holy Emperor and consort Tai Zhen being together was the king of Song, Li Qingqi. The eunuchs in the palace were bound by a common enemy. Eunuch Yu naturally wouldn't be friendly toward the king of Song either. After Eunuch Yu left, the great hall fell into a long silence. Looking at the imperial edict in the king of Song's hands, everyone's heart felt heavy. Everyone knew that the most prestigious Supreme Harmony Palace, in the Central Plains would be out of reach for the king of Song from now on. Unless he received a decree from the Holy Emperor, he would no longer have the right to step foot into it. Lu Ting looked at the king of Song by the side, his heart filled with worry. No one had expected that the matter of consort Tai Zhen would develop to such an extent. Originally, everyone thought that their greatest enemies were the Yao clan and King Qi, who supported consort Tai Zhen. As long as they defeated them in the court battle, they would be able to change His Majesty's mind. But at this moment, everyone realized that their true opponent had always been one person, and that was the current Holy Emperor. And the Yao clan and King Qi were merely obeying the Emperor's decree. Unexpected, unexpected. The king of Song slumped in the great hall. He seemed to have suffered a huge blow. Being ostracized in the royal court and losing his authority wasn't the biggest blow to the king of Song. What dealt the king of Song the biggest blow was that the wise and resourceful king of the Tang dynasty, whom he had always regarded as the wisest emperor in the history of the Tang dynasty, was actually going to ostracize him from the royal court for the sake of a woman. This was what the king of Song couldn't accept. Even though losing his authority in the royal court was unbearable, it was still difficult for him to turn around and support consort Tai Zhen. This matter concerned the loyalty of an emperor and the reputation of an official. It was impossible for the king of Song to turn around and support consort Tai Zhen. It seems like that lad has guessed correctly. Suddenly, there was a long sigh, and Lu Ting's familiar voice sounded in the king of Song's ears. Academic Lu, what do you mean by this? The king of Song raised his head and asked in astonishment. Lu Ting's words came out of nowhere, and there was no end to it either. No one knew what he meant. Your Highness, do you still remember Wang Yan's third son, Wang Chong? Lu Ting shook his head. There was an indescribable feeling in his voice. I do. Didn't I meet him at the Four Quarters Embassy? Why would Academic Lu bring this up? The king of Song asked in astonishment. He couldn't understand why Lu Ting would bring up that child at such a time. Back then, when we were leaving, I paid special attention to him. I have a feeling that that child knew that we would fail. Lu Ting said frankly. How is that possible? The king of Song abruptly straightened his body with a look of disbelief on his face. The matters in the royal court were treacherous, and it involved many aspects. Until the very last moment, even officials like them who had been immersed in politics for decades wouldn't know the outcome. How could a teenager like him be so certain of the outcome? Lu Ting only smiled and didn't say anything. Lu Ting's personality was one of those who loved to guide talented juniors. And Wang Cheng's capability wasn't just limited to talent. Probably, even Wang Cheng himself didn't know that Lu Ting had paid much more attention to him than he had imagined. Your Highness, do you still remember that he asked about the matter of Consort Taizhen? Now that I think about it, that child was actually trying to dissuade us. Perhaps it was because he knew that we wouldn't succeed. Thus, he decided to use another method. Lu Ting said. The King of Song was taken aback, and a grim expression finally appeared on his face. If that child was really as Lu Ting said, then he was truly extraordinary. Thinking about it carefully, back then, Wang Cheng did seem to be trying to dissuade him. It was just that in that situation, whether it was himself or Lu Ting, it was impossible for them to listen. Academic Lu, what do you mean? Do you want me to turn around and support Consort Taizhen? The King of Song's expression turned ugly. Your Highness, I don't want you to change your attitude and support Consort Taizhen. But don't you think that child had hidden meaning behind his words? He kept hinting that he wanted us to meet Prince Shou, Li Mao. I have a feeling that he knows something. His Majesty's attitude towards the matter of Consort Taizhen is too strange. It's completely different from before. I feel that maybe we really should go look for Prince Shou. Perhaps we can find out something different. Lu Ting said. The King of Song was silent, and his eyes revealed a grim expression. If it was in the past, he wouldn't have even thought about Lu Ting's words. But after so many things had happened, and after receiving 5 imperial edicts, the King of Song's attitude had changed greatly. The Holy Emperor's attitude was too strange. The King of Song had never thought that he would go this far for a woman. In the past, the King of Song didn't know much about Consort Taizhen. He only knew that she was the wife of Prince Shou, Li Mao. If it was in the past, he definitely wouldn't take a second look at this woman. But now, the King of Song suddenly had a strong desire. He really wanted to know what kind of woman could cause such a change in the Holy Emperor. Time passed slowly, and the hall was silent. Lu Ting didn't rush him. He just stood at the side and silently waited for the King of Song's opinion. That after some time, a long sigh came from the hall. Help me prepare. I'm going to Prince Shou's residence to meet Jean. Yes, Your Highness. Lu Ting smiled knowingly. He quickly got up and walked out. Chapter 118. The King of Song had left early in the morning but returned very late. Your Highness, how was it? Lu Ting hurriedly came forward to greet the King of Song as soon as he got off the carriage. In fact, he had never left. Ever since the King of Song set off, he had been waiting at the entrance. But for some reason, Lu Ting felt that the King of Song was restless when he returned. Moreover, he looked very tired, as if he had gone through several battles. The King of Song lowered his head and did not speak. His brows were deeply furrowed. After following the King of Song for so long, this was the first time Lu Ting had seen him like this. Everyone in the surroundings, including the guards and maids, had already dispersed. Prince Shou's matter was no small matter. Lu Ting had already contacted the old butler to prevent anyone from eavesdropping. I can't tell you in detail. Let's talk inside. There was a deep wariness in the King of Song's voice. This cautiousness was something Lu Ting had never encountered before. Lu Ting had thought that the guards and maids near the entrance would be enough to deal with Prince Shou's matter. But it seemed like this matter was much more serious than he had imagined. When they arrived at the King of Song's residence, the main hall was tightly shut. All 4 corners outside were guarded by experts from the King of Song's residence. The old butler was personally overseeing things outside. Even a mosquito would not be able to fly in. Shang said it. When they entered the main hall and there were no outsiders, the King of Song's expression visibly relaxed. In the beginning, he was inarticulate. When I asked him, he kept evading the topic and refused to admit it. If I hadn't watched him grow up and brought out the decree His Majesty gave me this morning, I'm afraid he would never have opened his mouth. What did Prince Shou say? Lu Ting's heart buzzed and he immediately blurted out. The King of Song's brows furrowed even tighter than before. He did not answer me directly. He only kept hinting to me to not pursue the matter of consort Tai Zhen. Ah! Lu Ting gasped softly. He looked very surprised, but he quickly reacted. Is Prince Shou unwilling to disobey His Majesty? In the matter of consort Tai Zhen, Prince Shou was undoubtedly a victim. The pain of a father stealing his son's wife was something that could not be told to outsiders. However, Prince Shou was a filial son. It was understandable that he advised the King of Song not to pursue this matter. No. The King of Song shook his head. His expression was solemn as he denied Lu Ting's guess. That's what I thought at first. But that was not the case at all. Although San didn't say it directly, he kept hinting to me that this matter might not be as bad as others think, and that he wasn't as wronged as others thought. Ah! Lu Ting exclaimed softly. He was truly shocked. The matter of consort Tai Zhen was a case of a monarch stealing his subject's wife, and a father stealing his son's wife. This was a fact that all the civil and military officials knew. Moreover, Prince Shou and consort Tai Zhen had been together for several years and had always been in love. This was also known by everyone. Precisely because of this, so many officials opposed the Holy Emperor and consort Tai Zhen to enter the palace. On this matter, everyone was on Prince Shou's side. What does Prince Shou mean by this? Could there be some secret behind this? Lu Ting asked in surprise. This political storm in the imperial court involved all the civil and military officials of the Tang dynasty, and even some minor officials in the prefectures. Many people were indignant and attacked consort Tai Zhen, the Yao clan and King Qi who supported consort Tai Zhen to enter the palace, and tried to persuade the Holy Emperor. But no one considered Prince Shou. And no one asked Prince Shou. In this matter, everyone thought that Prince Shou was the most serious victim. No matter how harsh one was, no one dared to risk universal condemnation by adding insult to injury by asking Prince Shou. If not for the fact that the King of Song had received 5 imperial edicts in a row and was ostracized from the imperial court, perhaps even the King of Song wouldn't have thought of paying a visit to the King of Song. I can't think of anything about this matter either. The King of Song shook his head. This was actually one of the deepest doubts in his heart. The matter of consort Tai Zhen is very clear. Back then, when Shang got married, I even attended his wedding banquet and gave him a pair of jade lions. I really can't think of any other secret behind this matter. Prince Shou's attitude and the taboo words suddenly shrouded this matter in a layer of fog, making it difficult to understand. Your Highness, can you tell me the details of your meeting with Prince Shou? Lu Ting suddenly asked. The King of Song nodded. Lu Ting was his trusted aide. If he couldn't even trust Lu Ting, then there really wasn't anyone he could trust. There were too many strange things about this matter. The King of Song had to find someone to help him think about it. Immediately, the King of Song recounted the entire visit in detail. In between, Lu Ting interjected with a few words, especially asking about Prince Shou's expression and attitude when he spoke. When the King of Song finished, Lu Ting fell into silence for a long time. Your Highness, I'm afraid that we have really overlooked many things regarding the matter of consort Tai Zhen. Although I don't know what kind of secret lies behind it, Prince Shou clearly isn't as sorrowful as we thought. Indeed. The King of Song nodded. This was also what he felt. But Your Highness, have you ever thought that even if Prince Shou doesn't wish for Your Highness to pursue the matter, and he himself said that he isn't as hurt and aggrieved as others think? Since that's the case, why didn't he come out to explain it to everyone? His Majesty has always been filial. If he comes out to explain this matter, the resistance His Majesty will face will definitely be much smaller. The resistance Your Majesty will face will definitely be much smaller than now. The King of Song was also stunned. You mean that Shang-Er is lying? Are you saying that Shang-Er is lying? Impossible. I watched this child grow up. He would never do such a thing. Your Highness, there are only two explanations for this matter. The first is that Prince Shou is lying. What he said isn't the truth. The second is that Prince Shou is indeed telling the truth. The reason why he didn't come out is that someone stopped him from speaking. But the second is that Prince Shou is indeed telling the truth. The reason why he didn't come out is that someone stopped him from speaking. But Lu Ting took a deep breath. He really didn't want to say this out loud. But Your Highness, have you ever thought that Prince Shou is a member of the royal family and a prince of the empire? Who is it that can stop him and make him shut up? You mean His Majesty? The King of Song's body jolted. His mind buzzed, and a thought flashed across his mind. Li Mao was personally conferred the title of Prince Shou by the Holy Emperor. In terms of standing, even though the King of Song was the imperial uncle, they were on equal footing. Even he and King Qi were incapable of silencing him. Needless to say, others. In the entire Central Plains, there was only one person who was capable of doing this. And that was the unparalleled Holy Emperor, the Son of Heaven. But this was a thought that even the King of Song didn't dare to think about. As long as Prince Shou spoke, His Majesty would face fewer obstructions. But why didn't His Majesty allow him to speak? In that instant, the hall fell silent. Neither of them dared to speak. It's a mess, it's all a mess, the King of Song raised his head. His mind was in a mess. For the first time, the King of Song felt his vision blurring, as though an impenetrable veil was shrouding him. Make preparations, I'll be making a trip to the palace tomorrow. In an instant, countless thoughts flashed across his mind. The King of Song suddenly made up his mind. Your Highness is going to meet the Emperor. Lu Ting was alarmed. At this moment, the Holy Emperor would never meet him. No. The King of Song's reply surprised Lu Ting. I'm going to meet the consort Tai Zhen. That the sky had already darkened, but the King of Song's actions were faster than Lu Ting had expected. That very night, the King of Song's carriage was already prepared. The gates of the royal palace were closed after nightfall. However, the King of Song was different. As a member of the royal family, the King of Song had special rights. After the gates were closed, he could enter the palace to meet the emperor. Although the carriage was ready, the King of Song did not enter the palace alone. Yin Shan pays his respects to the King of Song, Your Highness. At night, an old man wearing a black robe and a bamboo hat appeared on the King of Song's carriage with a black veil hanging from his head. The old man bowed and lowered his head. He seemed to be deliberately hiding his face, not wanting anyone other than the King of Song to see him. At this time, even Lu Ting, whom the King of Song had always trusted, was cast aside. Mr. Yin Shan, you've worked hard. When my father was still alive, we had an agreement not to trouble you for anything unusual. However, there's a reason for this, so I'll have to trouble you to go to the palace with me. The carriage door was open. The King of Song had been waiting at the door for a long time. He looked very respectful. There's no need to be so polite, Your Highness. Whether it's the King of Song or Your Highness, they're all trustworthy people. Ever since you took over as the King of Song, Your Highness has only used Yin Shan a few times. The last time was 6 years ago. Now, Your Highness has a need. Would Yin Shan dare to disobey? Mr. Yin Shan chuckled. His voice was low, hoarse, and there was an indescribable strangeness to it. The King of Song nodded and moved aside. Mr. Yin Shan lowered his head and slid into the carriage like a shadow. He did not make any sound. The King of Song did not know much about this, Mr. Yin Shan. He only knew that he was an extraordinary person passed down from his father. His father respected him very much. It could even be said that it was beyond respect. The King of Song had once told him not to easily ask for Yin Shan's help unless it was absolutely necessary. If not for the 5 imperial edicts, if not for the fact that the matter of consort Taizhen concerned the entire civil and military court, if not for the fact that Prince Shou's words were too strange, the King of Song would never have asked for Yin Shan's help. Let's go. As soon as Song Yunchuan's voice fell, the carriage immediately moved away. The rumbling of carriages could be heard outside, but the interior was deathly silent. Neither King Song nor Mr. Yin Shan spoke. After entering the carriage, Mr. Yin Shan automatically sat in the furthest corner of the carriage, blending in with the shadows. It was as if he was naturally afraid of sunlight. Boom! Chapter 119. As the carriage entered the imperial palace, an invisible pressure spread out from the center of the imperial palace in all directions, covering the sky and covering the earth. Any martial artist, even an expert like the King of Song, would feel a sense of pressure. In the carriage, Mr. Yin Shan was curled up into a ball, not making a single sound. At such a close distance, even the King of Song wouldn't have been able to sense Mr. Yin Shan's presence if he hadn't known beforehand. The royal palace had always been the place with the most experts in the Central Plains. Even describing it as a tiger's lair wasn't enough to describe it. Mr. Yin Shan clearly didn't want to attract the attention of the experts in the royal palace. The carriage was even quieter than before. Hong long long. After an unknown period of time, the rumbling of a carriage suddenly sounded from outside. Is that the King of Song ahead? A sharp voice sounded from outside the carriage. That's right. His Majesty has ordered that no one is to meet him today. The King of Song should return. The eunuch's voice was calm. Yes. I understand. Gong, please return. I'll be back soon. The King of Song was silent for a moment before replying. Outside the carriage, the eunuch didn't think too much about it. After receiving the King of Song's words, he immediately turned around and left. The rumbling of the carriage soon disappeared outside. Let's go. Without any hesitation, the King of Song listened intently in the carriage. The moment the eunuch disappeared, he immediately ordered the coachman to head in the direction of Yuzhen Palace. A prince had to have a reason to enter the royal palace, and meeting the emperor was the best one. The King of Song knew that he would be rejected, but his goal wasn't to meet the emperor. Mr. Yin Shan, we can't stay in the royal palace for too long, nor can we venture too deep. Otherwise, we'll be discovered by the royal consecrators in the royal palace. We don't have much time, so I'll have to trouble you. The King of Song said. The King of Song didn't know much about Mr. Yin Shan. They only knew that he had the innate divination art, could read faces, and could measure numbers. Moreover, he also had a long-lost ability, aura divination. It was rumored that different people's heads would emit different qi. The Son of Heaven had the qi of the Son of Heaven, the Minister of Generals had the qi of generals, the young had the qi of vigor, the old had the qi of grayness and decrepitude. Ordinary people can't see these qis, but warlocks who are good at observing qis can see them. Mr. Yin Shan's qi observation technique was different. He could observe one's appearance through qi observation. The carriage rumbled on for an unknown period of time. Through the window of the carriage, one could see a palace that resembled colored glass, brightly lit. Mr. Yin Shan, that's true Jade. The King of Song was about to tell Mr. Yin Shan that the Yuzhen Palace was up ahead, but he was interrupted. It's done. Your Highness, we can leave now. It was Mr. Yin Shan's voice, coming from the corner. Only the King of Song could hear it. The King of Song was stunned. He originally wanted to tell Mr. In Shan that they didn't have much time and wanted Mr. In Shan to finish as soon as possible. Unexpectedly, Mr. In Shan's chi observation speed was much faster than he had imagined. He had only lifted a corner of the curtain, and it seemed that Mr. In Shan had already finished his chi observation. Yes, Mr. The King of Song was taken aback, but he quickly agreed. The carriage rumbled as it left the palace. Just like when it entered, it didn't attract anyone's attention. It was not until they were far away from the imperial palace along Chang'an Street that the carriage stopped by the roadside. Mr. In Shan, did you see anything? In the night, the King of Song looked at Mr. In Shan with a grave expression, his eyes filled with anticipation. Nothing. Like a curled-up bird, Mr. In Shan stretched his body and abruptly sat up in the corner. However, his body was still like a shadow, making it impossible to sense his aura. I can't see anything from his chi. Entering the palace means that he is under the protection of the Son of Heaven. With the protection of the purple Son of Heaven's chi, I can't see anything from him. However, I did see something. What is it? The King of Song's expression tensed up. Previously, His Highness told me that the person he wanted me to see was Consort Taizhen. And how long has she been married to Prince Shou? Mr. In Shan raised his head and stared at the King of Song. His gaze was faint, and there was an indescribable feeling in it. That's right. The King of Song was puzzled. Then why is it that what I see is a ball of virgin chi? What? How is this possible? The King of Song was shocked. His first reaction was that Mr. In Shan must have made a mistake. Consort Taizhen and Prince Shou were married a few years ago. How could she still be a virgin? Could Sir have made a mistake? This sentence was blurted out. However, the moment the words left his mouth, the King of Song realized that he had said something wrong. Mr. In Shan was an expert in chi observation. In this aspect, he would never make a mistake. Moreover, he had already said that Consort Taizhen was protected by the Purple Emperor's chi. Even if Mr. In Shan didn't know Consort Taizhen, the Purple Emperor's chi protection had already pointed him in the right direction. Your Highness understands. Mr. In Shan laughed and cupped his hands in greeting. His Highness asked me to perform chi observation for Consort Taizhen. I'm done with my task, and it's time for me to leave. The general trend cannot be disobeyed. Your Highness, take care. Mr. In Shan's last sentence seemed to have a hidden meaning. The moment he finished speaking, he slid out of the carriage like a shadow and disappeared silently, just like how he had appeared. The King of Song had already stretched out his arm, but he retracted it in the end. Mr. In Shan's task had been completed, and the rest had nothing to do with him. Consort Taizhen was actually still a virgin. This was something the King of Song hadn't expected. However, Mr. In Shan would never lie. What exactly is going on? The King of Song's mind was in a mess. Return to the residence and immediately summon Academic Lu for questioning. In the main hall of the King of Song residence, the King of Song, Lu Ting, and the old butler were gathered together. None of them spoke. Your Highness, could Prince Shou be? Impossible. Lu Ting originally wanted to say that Prince Shou was impotent, but before he could finish, he was interrupted by the King of Song. Shang He was no longer a virgin at the age of 14. Many people in the Prince Shou residence know about this. Could it be that His Majesty intentionally placed it with Prince Shou to deceive others? Lu Ting asked again. This was the only answer he could think of. This was the only explanation as to why Prince Shou didn't mind the Sage King forcefully seizing Prince Shou Li Mao's wife. Furthermore, even after 2 years of marriage, Consort Taizhen was still a virgin. His Majesty is the Emperor and his words carry enormous weight. If he likes a woman, no one in the palace would dare to object. Why would he need Prince Shou to cover it up? The King of Song asked. This, Lu Ting was also stunned. If the emperor fancied a woman, he would be frank and open. There was indeed no need for Prince Shou to cover it up. There was no concubine in the palace who dared to be so jealous. Furthermore, there's another suspicious point. This isn't the first day Consort Taizhen entered the Yuzhen Palace. I heard that His Majesty, the Holy Emperor, has been there several times and even stayed the night there. Since His Majesty likes her so much that he even went to the extent of denouncing the King of Song, why is Consort Taizhen still a virgin? The old butler asked. It was understandable if Lu Ting said that Prince Shou was impotent, but the Holy Emperor was someone who favored the 3 palaces, 6 courtyards, and 72 concubines. He wasn't an abstinent person. It didn't make sense that Consort Taizhen was still a virgin even after entering the palace for more than a month. In the main hall, the brows of the trio were deeply knitted together. Your Highness, I think that we should ask someone about this matter. Lu Ting suddenly chuckled. Who? The King of Song asked. Wang Chong. Lu Ting chuckled. Upon hearing those words, the bodies of the King of Song and the old butler trembled. That's right. Now that they thought about it, all of this was caused by the 3rd son of the Wang clan, Wang Chong. If not for him, the King of Song wouldn't have thought of asking Prince Shou about it. Nor would he have realized that Consort Taizhen was still a virgin. There was no doubt that Wang Chong was the best person to ask. I underestimated him back at the 4 Quarters Embassy. Recalling the past, the King of Song suddenly let out a long sigh. Lu Ting, I'll have to trouble you to make a trip to the Wang clan. Tell him that I have something to ask of him. Now, I can only discuss this matter with him. Lu Ting smiled, clasped his hands, and took his leave. In the courtyard of the Wang clan, a figure was seated motionlessly. Mist was gathering from all directions, shrouding his entire body. Ignoring the commotion in the royal court, Wang Chong was cultivating might of the barbaric god alone in the residence. Endless origin energy was gathering from all directions, seeping into Wang Chong's body, turning into weak origin energy that circulated through his meridians before settling in Wang Chong's dantian, turning into strands of origin energy. This was might. What might of the barbaric god cultivated wasn't just origin energy, but layers upon layers of might. This might was stronger and more explosive. It was completely different from ordinary cultivation techniques. 6th layer. After an unknown period of time, when the might in his body condensed into a circular shape and settled in his dantian, Wang Chong heaved a sigh of relief. The first layer of might of the barbaric god was the cultivation of might. But before the 9th layer, what was cultivated wasn't called beast might, but the basic, Yuan Qi might. Wang Chong spent several days cultivating day and night before he managed to cultivate Yuan Qi might to the same level as him, Yuan Qi might level 6. Let me test out the power of Yuan Qi might. Wang Chong's eyes focused on a fake mountain in front of him, and there was something special in his eyes. Ping! Wang Chong suddenly punched out, and this punch was more than twice as fast as Wang Chong's previous punches. The fist struck the fake mountain, and it suddenly exploded with a bang. Smoke rose into the air, and it turned into the smallest powder. Hee, not bad. Looking at the fake mountain that turned into powder, Wang Chong laughed. When ordinary martial artists punched out, they would at most smash the fake mountain into countless tiny pieces. But might of the barbaric god was different. Punching the fake mountain with might of the barbaric god. The fake mountain didn't just shatter, but completely disintegrated. This was the greatest difference. Not only so, my strength has increased by quite a bit. Wang Chong looked at a fake mountain that weighed more than 400 jin not too far away. Stabbing his palm into the bottom of the fake mountain, he exerted his strength. Hong Long Long, this fake mountain, which was impossible for an origin energy tier 6 martial artist to lift, suddenly rose into the air. Wang Chong supported it with a single hand, and he even spun it around in his palm before putting it down. Young master, Academic Lu Ting is here. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.